purchasing process to be simpler. And growers have told us over and over again they want the best products at fair and clear, transparent prices. I think there are other programs in the marketplace that don't do that. I think there are other programs in the marketplace that potentially encourage purchase of inferior products, and those inferior products are not going to deliver the same outcome in the field. And so that's why BASF is really putting a full focus on listening to our growers and really listening to what they've asked for, which is reduce the complexity, reduce bundles, and let's make this thing simpler. Give me the right products that are going to give me the best yield, the best outcome in the field, and let's make sure those prices are transparent and clear. And that's exactly what Reward Beyond Rebates is all about.
While each grower and their operation differ, most share the same common goal: to maximize return on investments from their inputs. As the final touches are put on plans for the upcoming growing season, making the right agronomic decisions will lead to stronger returns than any rebate program. Growers should talk with their local BASF representative. More information can also be found at rewardsbeyondrebates.com. I'm Cindy Young with the Rewards Beyond Rebates Radio Roadshow on Brownfield, a content partnership with BASF.
Today on This Old But Still Nice House.
Hey, I'm going to start on getting that paint off the windowsill.
Wouldn't do that. This house was built before 1978. That's probably lead-based paint.
I don't think there's enough here to make a difference. Can't I just do it?
Sure, we can start the Lead Professional Certification Program on the Iowa Department of Public Health's website. Or we could just go to the site and find someone from their list of certified professionals. Seriously, stop scraping.
Find out what happens on the next episode of This Old But Still Nice House.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Hardin County man has been arrested on more than a dozen charges after police say he sexually assaulted an underage girl for years. 58-year-old Robert Eakin is charged with 5 counts of sexual abuse, 5 counts of enticing a minor, 3 counts of lascivious acts with a child, and 1 count of human trafficking. Court documents say that the charges stem from alleged incidents that started in January 2016. At the time, the female victim was under the age of 13. Those incidents allegedly continued until January of this year. Police say on one occasion, Eakin offered the victim access to social media, food, and ice cream in exchange for sexual favors. Criminal complaints say that Eakin admitted to abusing the girl. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 21st. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue has announced that the USDA is investing more than $500,000 to provide broadband service in underserved rural areas in Iowa. Perdue said, quote, "I'm so proud of our rural communities who have been working day in and day out to produce the food and fiber America depends on. We need them now more than ever during these trying times, and expanding access to critical infrastructure will help ensure rural America prospers for years to come." Breda Telephone Corp will use a grant of over $500,000 to deploy a fiber-to-home network that will provide broadband connections for homes, farms, and businesses in Carroll County. Thursday afternoon, Webster County Public Health confirmed another resident has tested positive for COVID-19. The county's total positive case count as of Thursday is at 13. Public Health says 6 of those 13 have recovered, and the county has had 1 COVID-19-related death. Public health officials say that the age range of the newest case in the county is between 18 and 40. Webster County Pork Producers Association President Greg Hora spoke recently about the issues COVID-19 has presented for the pork industry in Iowa. Here's Greg Hora on the impact the pandemic is having on pork consumers.
How does this impact on consumers? And I always talk about the human health perspective and the nutrition perspective of any protein, and it's actually happening around the world right now. When we talk about exports and we talk about other people in the world that want to eat pork, They're buying at a ferocious pace right now, and in the last couple months, the pork prices have plummeted.
Hora went on to talk about the projected revenue losses for Iowa pork producers.
The CARD report, the Center of Agricultural Research down at Iowa State University, and projected that Iowa pork producers were going to lose $2 billion. Actually, it was $2.1 billion.
He says that he feels the revenue issues will not be quickly rectified.
That's $2 billion in Iowa. Pork industry nationwide, we're going to be down about $5 billion from where we were projected on March 1st. This thing has a long tail on it, which means there's going to be a lot of continued problems or losses for a prolonged period of time.
Iowa is the number one state in the country in pork production and the top state for exporting pork. Outlets of Des Moines will host a drive-through food distribution this Sunday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The event is in partnership with Caring Hands Outreach Center. Each family will receive 25 pounds of non-perishable food with a limit of 1 per vehicle. The drive will distribute a total of 250 packages. Distribution is on a first-come, first-served basis for anyone who needs food. The drive will be located at the Outlets of Des Moines behind Polo Ralph Lauren using the entrance off Adventureland Drive. For more information, visit caringhandsiowa.com. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Thank you, Rob. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. 70 degrees in town right now. It'll be sunny and 73 for a high today. Some clouds overnight with a low of 50. Tomorrow, showers early in the day. Then we'll have maybe thunderstorms later in the day. Our chance of precipitation tomorrow is 70%, but it will be 70 degrees for a high. On Sunday, a chance of rain, sunny with a high of 64. On Monday, mostly sunny with a high of 71. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 78. Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high of 81. Thursday, sunny with a high of 82. Again, right now here in Fort Dodge, it's 70 degrees. AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home.
During this challenging and unprecedented time, Gunderson's is here to serve with expert guidance and understanding to each family and their unique needs. We provide options for funeral, cremation, memorial, virtual, and webcast services, either presently or at a later date. We understand that grief does not wait. We are trained to help you walk this path to bring comfort and support. Every life deserves to be recognized and celebrated, whether it be together or afar.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Again, obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Phil Ladley of Fort Dodge has passed away. Phil Ladley has died at the age of 78. He died yesterday at the Paula J. Baber Hospice Home. Arrangements have been entrusted to Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services. Memorials may be sent to Unity Point Hospice. Philip Ladley, 78 years old of Fort Dodge, has died. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. With a look at the closing market report, here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn up 1 3/4 at $3.19 1/4. September up a penny at $3.23. December corn up a quarter penny at $3.32. March unchanged at $3.44 3/4. July soybeans up 1 1/2 at $8.38 1/2. August up 1 3/4 at $8.40 3/4. September up 1 3/4 at $8.41 1/4. November up 1 3/4 at $8.45 1/2. July wheat closed down 2 cents at $5 1/4. Soybean meal down 70 cents a ton at $2.8750. June live cattle up $2.87 at $97. August up 82 at $97.82. May feeder cattle up 92 cents at $124.72. August up 2 cents at $131.07. June lean hogs down 87 cents at $57.87. And July down 105 at $57.75. I am Dwayne Murley.
Michael Devine the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
I am the Doctor of Truth, and with me now is the Lawyer of Truth, Janice Valentine. How are you, Janice?
I'm fabulous, Mike. How about you?
I know you are fabulous. This is the fabulous Janice Valentine, who's an attorney here in town. She practices primarily in workers' compensation and personal injury. There is no fee for first consultation. Valentine Law Office PC is at 415 the Boston Center, 809 Central Avenue, Fort Dodge. She's at www.valentinelaw.net or jvalentine@valentinelaw.net, 515-955-5544. That's 955-5544. I was talking with your man earlier today, Janice.
And which man would that have been?
I know you have several. But I was talking with Congressman Steve King. What do you think of the congressman? I'm really putting you on the spot here, aren't I?
You know, the concern that I have with Steve King, amongst many, but you know, we need a voice that is listened to by Congress, by our leaders, you know, all those types of things. When we send somebody to represent us, we need to send somebody that's going to be listened to. And it's become quite apparent that he's just kind of been the pariah the last year and a half. Has it been that long? I'm trying to remember when kind of all the dust was settling, but you know, and that's not good representation for our area. I think that's my issue is we need to make sure we have a voice that is listened to, and we don't have that right now. So we basically are paying for someone to sit there. Obviously, he gets to vote, but he's not on any committees, which is huge for Iowa. I mean, we have somebody that's at least somewhere on the agricultural committee, which is obviously our greatest livelihood here in the state. And so I really believe that the important part of any of those considerations is making sure whoever is our representative is someone that has a voice and can use it.
Well, people have very strong emotions on both sides with Steve King. Nobody is neutral on the idea of Steve King or the person of Steve King. It's either full-throated support. You were about as mellow as any opinion I've ever heard, actually.
It's just how I am, Mike.
I know. You were very mellow there while making your point plain. But there's a lot of people out there who lose their minds over Steve King, even more than they've lost their minds over Donald Trump. I do want to ask you we're going to move off politics here in a minute. Some of my friends and some of your friends seem to think that Donald Trump he represents the four horses of the apocalypse. It's like the four horses of the apocalypse are riding down 169 in the form of Donald Trump. And he's going to destroy everything about our country that's good or reasonable or sacred. I just don't see him that way. I mean, maybe I'll give you a point of view to bounce off of. But to me, he's a Republican and a bit of a bozo, but he seems to be effective a lot of times. End of story. I'm not going to go with Biden because that's a whole different can of worms. But do you think that Donald Trump should have filled people with fear the way he has? Because I don't get it.
Well, that's that could be a whole day conversation. I am not a Trump fan. I feel that he has created more harm than good in what he has done and what he really kind of perpetrates in our country, and that is he is not a uniter. That is very clear to me. He doesn't have that bone in his body.
No.
I also would dispute that he's a Republican. I don't feel like his policies really are Republican. They're more Donald Trump. I mean,
I'd probably
he's not
say
about
that.
the party.
No,
he's
not
not
really.
about the party. And I'm not questioning that he loves our country. I believe he loves our country, but I'm pretty sure he loves Donald Trump more.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, Trump owns the Republicans. He owns them. I mean, he.
And how did that happen?
I have no idea.
When people say we don't deserve Donald Trump, my remark to that, anytime I'm told that or hear that, I'm like, there were 17 choices sitting on that stage. I think we got it because we deserve it.
I watched them come through Fort Dodge. I watched all the Republican candidates for the Republican nomination come to Fort Dodge, with the exception of Marco Rubio, and make their case. Even Donald Trump, he was out to Iowa Central. Even then I thought something was up because Iowa Central Auditorium was packed, and I just couldn't see it. But I'll tell you, and this is from Bill Clinton, who's a master politician. Bill Clinton warned the Democrats repeatedly that Trump was a master marketer. He could stick you with a name, and you were going to have that name. Tiny little Marco or whatever he called him, and now he's got Sleepy Joe. And God, I can't get it out of my head. I'm sorry.
and I don't want to say I told you so, but I remember not long before the election when you and I had a discussion along these lines, and I said, Donald Trump's going to be our next president. And you were like, no.
Absolutely not. I went to bed election night fairly early. Oh, this is over, and I got up the next morning, and Donald Trump's and he's giving a victory speech, and we're waiting for Hillary Clinton. And I thought, am I in the Twilight Zone? Have I taken some drugs or something over here? Or what has happened to me? I still today stand and say to myself, Donald Trump is president of the United States. I don't think I've gotten it in my head yet. Donald Trump. I mean, he's the apprentice guy. He never held political office in his life. So he starts at the presidency and he wins. Now, there was a...
It gives you hope for Jesse Ventura, right? I mean, it can happen.
Yeah, there's another one. Who thought that he would be the governor of Minnesota? I mean... He actually refereed a pro wrestling match while he was governor. You cannot.
I mean, it lets us all know we can dream big, I guess. Maybe that's the takeaway. But
maybe that is.
I don't feel that he has been a positive effect or has had a positive effect on our country. And I understand that people can always say the economy. Of course, right now it's a little different. But even when people, before this COVID-19 stuff was going, that would tout the economy, what about the deficit? I mean, that has to be part of the economy. And we've just, I guess, given up on
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, who I suspect of taking diet pills, tells us we need to borrow another $3 trillion. Where's the money coming from? They're printing it.
I know, and there's no way. It's probably why the interest rates are what they are, because there's no way we could afford to pay ourselves back. I mean, it's not going to happen.
It simply is not going to happen. Janice Valentine is our guest. She's an attorney here in town and a longtime contributor to the program. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about Joe Biden, and I'm not. But he's going to pick a vice presidential candidate soon. Joe Biden is older now than when Ronald Reagan left office. And we all thought Reagan was too old to run in the first place. So now Biden is 2 years older than Reagan when he left office. Reagan was 76. Biden's almost 78. So the question becomes who's going to be the vice presidential candidate. I'm not trying to be morbid here, but Vice President Biden appears to be, not on his best game or impaired at times.
Yeah.
So who's your choice for vice president? It's got to be a woman the way I'm looking at it.
I think so, too. And I'm kind of thinking, of course, I was kind of a fan in the primary part of this anyway, but Amy Klobuchar brings a unique, I think, perspective to the ticket female Midwest, because I think there's a whole lot of us in the belt here who feel left out and feel that politics has become a coastal thing. If you're not from New York or California, it's like you've you're a goat. And so I think that she brings that to the table. Kamala Harris also has some interesting traits, I guess, but in the same token, what I'm concerned about with her would be, is she too much everything that we're concerned about?
I'll tell you, I met Kamala Harris when she was in town here, and she was a startlingly beautiful woman as far as I'm concerned. I mean, she really was. And she's
incredibly smart.
And oh my God! So here we have this beautiful woman who's whip smart, but there is the problem of her just taking Biden apart during the debates, and also
and I just think she's too liberal.
Well, she's from California, which was a sure thing for the Democrats anyway. That's the problem with Elizabeth Warren. She's from Massachusetts. Liz was my girl, but she's from Massachusetts, another reliably Democratic state. Minnesota, not so much.
Right. And that's, I think, the intriguing part of that. So I guess if I was picking, and I agree with you, I think he needs a female on the ticket. In light of everything that's going on, I think he needs a female on the ticket. But yeah, and I think she fits the bill.
Well, I appreciate everything you said about Senator Klobuchar, and you're absolutely correct. She may have had a charisma bypass, which is why I keep going back to Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is charismatic. But she's got too many other things going there. She's just got, the Republicans, if she's the choice, are going to be rebroadcasting her debate performance over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And also policy. Her stance on policies were, I think, frankly, scary to a lot of us.
Yeah,
it just went too far, and we all need to keep in mind that there is nothing that is free. I mean, anytime you talk about free anything, it's not free. It means we're paying for something that we haven't paid for in the past. But that money, again, like we said earlier with the deficit, the money has to come from somewhere.
Well, see, this is your Republican side coming out, which I consider your most attractive side. I learned long ago in advertising class, as a matter of fact, when I was in college years and years ago, the instructor got up in front of class and said, the most useless word in the English language is free. Because there's, and we were taking advertising again, and free this and free that. Well, nonsense. Somebody somewhere paid for it, and you're going to pay for it now. So if you want to use free, that's fine, but it's almost meaningless now. And hell, that was over 40 years ago when he told me that, and it's absolutely correct. Free is baloney.
And I don't think. Well, I should couch this differently. Most of us, I think, don't expect things for free. We expect to pay something for them. Let's take healthcare, for example. I don't expect free healthcare. I would like to pay less for my health insurance, and there has to be a way that could probably work. But I guess that's my concern with some of the potential picks for a vice president on the Biden ticket, is those types of policies are not going to draw in the centrist people that I think they're going to need to rely on, because I think centrist people are the ones that are maybe a little bit more worn out by President Trump.
Well, that was the centrist idea is the Clinton coalition. Clinton believed that the Democrats were losing elections because university-educated middle-class people were voting Republican out of economic concerns. They may have agreed with the Democrats on social concerns, abortion, gay rights, all that sort of thing, but they weren't going to vote for the Democrats because it would cost them money. Now, I would have reminded President Clinton, if I would have been in his orbit, that the candidates for president the Democrats put up in the 80s, Walter Mondale and Michael Dukakis, were less than electable.
Yeah.
That the candidates were terrible. But Clinton definitely moved the party to the right on the economic question, and he was successful. Of course, he was one of the most unbelievable politicians I ever saw. He really was, and he remains that way. He's a sharp guy. He just couldn't make his wife likable, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm a media person. I really believe in that image on the television or on the screen, in how someone speaks. It makes all the difference in the world to most people. I would find
we are a very visual society now.
Yeah, ugly people aren't going to get elected anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at our first maybe 15, 20 presidents. They wouldn't be there.
No, Lyndon Johnson,
President
President Lyndon Johnson was a great legislator. He really was. Great Society, Medicare, all those programs came from Lyndon Johnson. But even he admitted he would never be able to be elected in the modern era of television because he didn't look good on TV. And he had that drawling Southern accent. He was right. But look what he did. I mean, he got ate up by the Vietnam War, but when it came to domestic policy, he was fantastic.
Yeah, I just watched something. The days all run together anymore.
God, tell me about it.
I watched something about FDR, and he's a biography I need to read. I'm intrigued. But anyway, just the things that he got done in terms of, and in a bad economic scenario. I mean, he was strapped with some not good numbers. But all the WPA and all those things that happened, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but the numbers of hospitals and schools and well, you were alive, right? How many? No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's the mark that can be left by those that are in our leadership positions is immense. And so, yeah, I hope Joe picks well, and I'm with you. I have concerns about his ongoing health.
Yeah.
There are certainly some markers there that are troubling.
Well, there's people who believe the best thing that happened to Joe Biden's candidacy was this COVID pandemic. Not to be flip or to take it lightly at all, but we haven't seen Joe Biden. He's in a basement somewhere. And that's probably good for the Democrats because Biden has a tendency to babble and get lost in his conversation. It's not on the evening news because he's in the basement and we're dealing with the coronavirus, which is as it should be, but it's a great, oddly, it benefits the Biden campaign and the Democrats. That's weird, but it does.
Agreed. And, he's always, well, I shouldn't say always. It's not like I know the guy, but I remember he came to some lawyer thing that I was at, and like the expectation was that he was going to talk for 10, 15 minutes and then not keep talking. And about an hour and 15 minutes later, we're all kind of looking at each other as in, is this ever going to stop? It went on. No, it was cogent. So, I mean, it wasn't rambling babble, but he is a talker. He's definitely a talker.
Oh, yeah. That's something
and that's coming from me.
Yeah, I know. He and I have that in common. I can get going on something, and I'll be babbling for 45 minutes before I realize I have a guest. Oh, you're here! By the way, I don't want to forget to tell you, Janice, I'll be gone the next 2 Fridays, so unfortunately we don't get to talk, but I'm going to take a little time off.
Well, good for you. Good for you. I hope the weather cooperates and you get to enjoy some good Iowa spring, summer, whatever we call this season.
I have every expectation. One of those days off or 2 of those days off, I can't remember, are actually so I can go get another sleep test, which was really a great thing to do. I look forward to those like I look forward to a prostate exam, for God's sake. Anyway, Janice Valentine is our guest at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Janice, of course, went to the University of Iowa. What are we going to do without sports if we're still in this situation in the fall and we don't have Hawkeye football? What a bummer!
I can't even go there yet in my head. I'm struggling, realizing the last time I watched ESPN was I don't know when. I mean, it was I do know when, because, it wasn't on ESPN. I watched the start of that Creighton game in the NCAA tournament. That was the last sporting event I've seen, and that's like unheard of. This is the longest I've ever gone without a sporting event, because even as a kid, remember ABC Wide World of Sports, Howard Cosell, and the agony of defeat and the thrill of victory and all that good stuff. That was like an event for me every Saturday, and so I miss it greatly. So I'm hopeful that at least we can hopefully watch sporting events, even if we can't be there in person. But I also respect the decisions that need to be made in light of the safety of participants, and I do think it will look different. And I don't have all the answers for that, of course, but it's going to look different. But yeah, I'm optimistic that we'll see hopefully our Hawks in uniform soon.
Do you agree with Governor Reynolds' decision to open up the economy?
Well, and I think that's too broad to say opening up the economy. I have questioned the order in which the things have opened, but I also respect the fact that you can open anything and I can choose myself whether I choose to go. So, just because something is open doesn't mean you have to participate. And so I'm a little, the friends of mine that are up in arms over everything's opening too soon, I respect that, but stay home. Don't go.
Well, your friends are probably up in arms in general. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a great political answer from Janice Valentine. I believe I have the Democratic candidate to run against Steve King in the next election right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get on the Valentine train and send Janice to Washington. I think we need her there.
Well, but the problem, I just sent my Republican primary ballot in.
You're just going to have to hold off on that, huh? All right, good enough. Well, when Crane Brink retires, we'll send you down there. All right, thank you, Janice. Thank you very much.
Hey, have a great weekend, Mike.
You too, as always. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
At Humboldt Motors, your well-being is their number one concern. During this time of social distancing, Humboldt Motors wants you to know they're still here for you. If you need a new vehicle, they'd be happy to bring it to you. Shop online at HumboldtGM.com. Check out their complete selection of new and used vehicles. Then give them a call and tell them which one you'd like to see. It's that easy. And if you need service on your current vehicle, they'll come pick it up and deliver it when it's done. Humboldt Motors, online at HumboldtGM.com.
Hahn Roofing takes pride in adapting to the needs of our customers. That's why we have implemented a no-contact, free estimate process just for you. Your home is your biggest investment, and when your roof needs repairs, you need to know that there's someone you can count on to take the needed steps to help you. Call Hahn Roofing today to schedule your no-contact, free estimate. Let Hahn Roofing handle the rest. Call 515-573-7440. At Hahn Roofing, your family is protected under our roof.
From tuning an engine to replacing a fuse, you can learn it all under the hood. Heard every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KVFD, Fort Dodge.
Yeah, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Congressman Steve King after the news. I want to thank you for listening. Certainly want to thank Janice Valentine as always. 3 o'clock, 67 degrees.
Do we need a vaccine to reopen the country? I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. President Trump doesn't think so, saying with or without a vaccine, we're back, continuing to praise states as more pandemic restrictions are eased. But he's also hoping to find a vaccine in record time and start producing it while the clinical trials are still happening.
The federal government will invest in manufacturing all of the top vaccine candidates before they're approved, so we're knowing exactly what we're doing before they're approved.
It amounts to a gamble on the vaccines that appear to be most promising. The president says there will be talks on another coronavirus relief bill, but not the $3 trillion Democratic plan getting a House vote today. A much longer process as social distancing guidelines are followed, which is why there's also a debate over how the House operates.
A resolution offered by House Democratic leadership would allow members to vote by proxy and give House committees authority to meet remotely.
The best place you can find to get the coronavirus is indoors in an enclosed room with a lot of people and a lot of talk. That's the definition of Congress.
Tennessee Democrat Steve Cohen says the resolution limited to 45 days during the pandemic makes good health sense. Republican leaders are opposed, claiming the proposal is not bipartisan, sets a dangerous precedent, and undermines millions of essential workers who continue to show up for their jobs. Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Fresh evidence of just how hard the economy's been hit by the pandemic. Retail sales tumbling by more than 16% from March to April. Industrial production also falling by a record amount, more than 11%, as the number of lives lost in the U.S. tops 86,000. Worldwide cases now over 4.5 million. America is listening to Fox News.
This is a last chance alert. It's happening. Publishers Clearinghouse is ready to award $5,000 a week for life in just days. Enter now at PCH.com and you could win $5,000 a week after week, for life. Don't miss this last chance to win $5,000 a week for life on June 30th. Enter at PCH.com before it's too late. That's PCH.com. Better hurry if you want the next big winner to be you. Enter now at PCH.com. Entries due 6/25. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited.
This is Stacy on her motorcycle.
What an incredible view!
And this is Stacy off her motorcycle.
Does this have sucralose in it?
On her motorcycle.
Oh, the wind in my hair!
Off her motorcycle.
It's pronounced etc., not etc.
On.
Woohoo! Yes!
Off.
No.
You're better on your bike. And with basic policy starting at $75 a year, quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
A court fight over names long used for schools, but recently controversial, is tossed out.
A federal judge has dismissed a lawsuit by the NAACP in Virginia, which pushed for the removal of Confederate leaders' names from Lee Davis High School and Stonewall Jackson Middle School in Hanover County, arguing they violate constitutional rights of black students, making them feel uncomfortable, forcing them to at times endorse the Confederacy. The schools opened more than 50 years ago, and Judge Robert Payne ruled the 2-year statute of limitations for personal injury complaints had expired. The school board had argued the civil rights group should have sued more than half a century ago. Lillian Wu, Fox News.
A lawsuit aimed at further postponing Georgia's primary is tossed out by a federal judge who says it's up to state legislatures to manage elections. Space Force now has its own flag unveiled in the Oval Office, with President Trump stressing the importance of the military's 6th branch.
We've worked very hard on this, and it's so important from a defensive standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, from every standpoint there is.
The U.S. Defense Chief Mark Esper says adversaries have weaponized space, and the U.S. is doing what's needed to protect and sustain our way of life. For the first time since the pandemic shut down sports over 2 months ago, there are live events this weekend.
Sports fans, start your televisions. NASCAR returns to Fox at Darlington Raceway in South Carolina with empty stands and social distancing guidelines in place. No qualifiers and no practice. Drivers will jump straight onto the track. And PGA Tour golf doesn't officially resume until the middle of next month, but Rory McIlroy, Ricky Fowler, and others will compete in a skins match for charity. Social distancing rules will be in place for that as well. Grady Trimble, Fox News.
After an early sell-off, a partial rebound on Wall Street. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Hardin County man has been arrested on more than a dozen charges after police say he sexually assaulted an underage girl for years. 58-year-old Robert Eakin is charged with 5 counts of sexual abuse, 5 counts of enticing a minor, 3 counts of lascivious acts with a child, and 1 count of human trafficking. Court documents say that the charges stem from alleged incidents that started in January 2016. At the time, the female victim was under the age of 13. Those incidents allegedly continued until January of this year. Police say on one occasion, Eakin offered the victim access to social media, food, and ice cream in exchange for sexual favors. Criminal complaints say that Eakin admitted to abusing the girl. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 21st. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue has announced that the USDA is investing more than $500,000 to provide broadband service in underserved rural areas in Iowa. Perdue said, quote, "I'm so proud of our rural communities who have been working day in and day out to produce the food and fiber America depends on. We need them now more than ever during these trying times, and expanding access to critical infrastructure will help ensure rural America prospers for years to come." Breda Telephone Corp will use a grant of over $500,000 to deploy a fiber-to-home network that will provide broadband connections for homes, farms, and businesses in Carroll County. Thursday afternoon, Webster County Public Health confirmed another resident has tested positive for COVID-19. The county's total positive case count as of Thursday is at 13. Public Health says 6 of those 13 have recovered, and the county has had 1 COVID-19-related death. Public health officials say that the age range of the newest case in the county is between 18 and 40. Webster County Pork Producers Association President Greg Hora spoke recently about the issues COVID-19 has presented for the pork industry in Iowa. Here's Greg Hora on the impact the pandemic is having on pork consumers.
How does this impact on consumers? And I always talk about the human health perspective and the nutrition perspective of any protein, and it's actually happening around the world right now. When we talk about exports and we talk about other people in the world that want to eat pork, they're buying at a ferocious pace right now. And in the last couple months, the pork prices have plummeted.
Hora went on to talk about the projected revenue losses for Iowa pork producers.
The CARD report, the Center of Agricultural Research down at Iowa State University, and projected that Iowa pork producers were going to lose $2 billion. Actually, it was $2.1 billion.
He says that he feels the revenue issues will not be quickly rectified.
That's $2 billion in Iowa. Pork industry nationwide, we're going to be down about $5 billion from where we were projected on March 1st. This thing has a long tail on it, which means there's going to be a lot of continued problems or losses for a prolonged period of time.
Iowa is the number 1 state in the country in pork production and the top state for exporting pork. Outlets of Des Moines will host a drive-through food distribution this Sunday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The event is in partnership with Caring Hands Outreach Center. Each family will receive 25 pounds of non-perishable food with a limit of 1 per vehicle. The drive will distribute a total of 250 packages. Distribution is on a first-come, first-served basis for anyone who needs food. The drive will be located at the Outlets of Des Moines behind Polo Ralph Lauren using the entrance off Adventureland Drive. For more information, visit caringhandsiowa.com. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Mainly sunny skies and calm this afternoon with a high of 73. Winds out of the north, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, 50. Scattered thunderstorms likely tomorrow, high of 69. Mid-60s Sunday with a chance for scattered rain showers. Low 70s, partly cloudy Monday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 70.
I'm Phil Gunderson. Gunderson's has a tradition of providing services unmatched in our community. Funeral, cremation, and pre-planning services with certified celebrants on staff, aftercare, video, and customized printed goods that are the standard. We offer live streaming options and community support with remembrance and educational programs. When it's time to look for a funeral home, look to Gunderson's.
Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services.
When severe weather threatens, keep it here for the Severe Weather Advisor, brought to you by Riley Armstrong Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing emergencies don't usually happen during normal business hours, so Riley Armstrong is here for you 24/7. Call 955-2232. And the Fort Museum in Frontier Village, where history comes alive. Travel back in time and celebrate the heritage of Fort Dodge at the Fort Museum. Book your next special event at the Opera House, too. When severe weather threatens, stay with your friends on the Voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the Voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, yes, the Doctor of Truth. And with me today is Congressman Steve King. How are you, sir? Always a pleasure.
I'm doing fine. This time I'm out in Washington, D.C. rather than Base Camp Kyron.
What brings you back to Washington, D.C.?
Nancy Pelosi and AOC's $3 trillion wish list. So that's brought a lot of Republicans here to do battle, and I don't think we're going to win in the House today, but at least we're going to wound this thing and let it get sent over to the Senate, where I think Mitch McConnell has a big, deep drawer for it. And should it come out of that drawer, then it goes to the president's desk, where he's got a veto pen, and he's got the votes of us guys here in the House to sustain his veto. So that's what's going on here.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but I think the thing that needs to be addressed here, and apparently as early as Monday of this week, you had an agreement in place with the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, a personal demon of yours, I know. Apparently Congressman McCarthy swore to you and gave his word that if you were reelected, all your committee assignments, including judiciary and agriculture, would be restored to you, plus your seniority. And you were quoted in the newspaper as saying you had his word on that. Today, well, actually last night and then early this morning, we heard from 3 other people responsible for committee assignments, or 2 other people, both Republicans, and they have declared that you will never get your committee assignments back. What's going on here?
Well, I think what you found is that both of those folks that made that declaration are from Ohio. They are acolytes to John Boehner. John Boehner was pushed out of this Congress by a handful of us, and I'm one of those in that handful. So since he nurtured them, that's one of the reasons why those 2 Ohio representatives have done what they've done. Another is that there is a major donor in the background here, a multi-billionaire with a deep checkbook that contributed at least $24 million to the National Republican Congressional Committee candidates. That's just the 2016 cycle. I don't have the numbers for 2018. But
who's the multi-billionaire you're describing here?
Well, I don't want to quite say his name yet because he has more lawyers than I have. It just keeps getting, his name gets linked back in with this over and over and over again. And he has an agenda that it's a pro-LGBTQ agenda, and he's a fanatic about it. And I stood on the courthouse steps, the Supreme Court steps, and defended marriage between a man and a woman and the Constitution without disparaging anybody's private life. That's between them and God. And that's brought some of the ire down on me. But that's not the only thing. Every conservative principle that I have stood for is under attack by these rhinos. And that's why they recruited Randy Feenstra. And he may not know who his boss is yet, but I do.
Congressman Steve King is our guest. There has been objection to some of the things you've said over the years, that's for sure. And I want to address just a couple of them, give you a chance to respond publicly. Some years ago, you displayed a small Confederate flag on your desk. Now, you're a student of history. You have to know that the history of that flag and the symbolism of that flag would trigger some comments, and boy did it. Why did you display such a flag on your desk?
Well, Mike, I actually I sent one of our staff out to buy me a Confederate flag, and the reason for that is it's a symbol also of the pride of the South, which I don't have a lot of affinity to, but freedom of speech. And what happened was that Confederate flag, or let's just say stars and bars, because there's an argument about what's a battle flag and what's a Confederate flag. But the stars and bars are a symbol of Southern pride. And if you Google just Southern pride and hit images, you'll get page after page of stars and bars. And if you Google slavery, you get not one image that shows the stars and bars. That pretty well tells you that the deal was this. At the end, and I'm a student of history, as you said, that at the end of the Civil War, the Confederate troops lined up in gray to surrender. They stacked their arms. And the deal was this. They had to pledge to never take up arms against the United States again. And when they did that, and nearly every one of them did that, they got to pick up their arms, and if they had a horse, take their horse and go home. Keep your pride, your arms, and your horse. We're going to bring this country back together. But Democrats took that symbol and began to move amendments in open rules so that they could bring any amendment they wanted to strip the stars and bars out of state flags, wherever it was hanging on a federal building. And all of this was all characterized to be, they turned it into a symbol of only slavery. And when I saw that going on, I ran down to the floor, and I got recognized for a 5-minute speech on that debate. And I reminded them of the case of Johnson versus Texas. That was the case that said you have to stand and watch as Old Glory is burned in protest, because burning an American flag is expression of freedom of speech. That was a Supreme Court decision back in the 80s. And so I went through this history for them, and I came back and I told my staff, now these stars and bars are a symbol of freedom of speech. And I put it on my desk for about, I suppose, 2 or 3 months, and then I took it off of there because it didn't serve a purpose anymore. So that's what that's about, and it's about defending freedom of speech, and it's never been. And for me, I also have, in my coffee table here, I have the leather-bound, shirt pocket-size New Testament Bible that my great-uncle carried with him during the Civil War for 3 years in the Civil War. 5 times great-uncle. My 5 times great-grandfather, his cousin, was killed in the Civil War and didn't come back, but I found this artifact, and it's one of my most precious things. So, no, I understand this history, and I understand the meaning of it, and I understand also, just some of the vicious politics that goes on with people. While they are subverting our freedom of speech and amending and altering the true American history, they're attacking me for a symbol that should recognize the pride of the South and also recognize freedom of speech.
Well, I understand that. Let me follow up just a little bit here. You certainly understand that the Confederate flag is seen as a symbol of oppression, slavery, cruelty. You had to know that. So what do you think would have happened if the South would have won the war? I mean, how would slavery have ended?
Well, Mike, slavery would have ended. It was on its way out anyway, but we paid a tremendous price to get rid of slavery, and Western civilization is the only civilization that developed a moral revulsion against it. I mean, our culture, our Western civilization culture and our American civilization rose up and rejected slavery, and it was the right thing and the appropriate thing for that to happen. 740,000 Christian males died to put an end to slavery, and there's a good half of that that's extraordinarily honorable, and those were the folks in the Union uniforms. But we have to also have a national unity, and if we had lost that war, you can take the cascading through history. There may not be any liberty left on the planet if the Union had lost the Civil War. We could not have and would not have likely intervened in the First World War. We would not have been the global power that we had to be to win the Second World War on 2 fronts, on the Japanese side and on the Nazi side. Communism would have swept over the world. We wouldn't be free people anymore if we hadn't won that. I mean, I can play that thing out. It would have been a terrible turn of the worm of history had not the Union won the Civil War. So when I look back at that, as ghastly as it was, the most costly war in America's history, when I look back at it, you have to say, no matter how bloody it was worth the price because it saved freedom for the world by saving the Union. And by the way, that's what Lincoln said. He said, I'd not be a slave. As I would not be a slave, I would not be a master. But he also said about the Union, and if I can end slavery and save the Union, I'll do that. If I can save the Union and not end slavery, I'll do that. If I can end some slavery and save the Union, I'll do that. He went through every iteration of that. He was about saving the Union, and he was opposed to slavery. But the battle in Lincoln's mind was make sure that we don't let this country get torn in two. And that's what those people were doing in that debate, is trying to tear this country in two.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is Congressman Steve King. There's a lot I want to talk with you about. We have a little time, so we're going to get to as many things as we can. I'm very concerned about the food supply in the United States and in our state. As the last time we talked, you mentioned you were going to Minnesota and maybe witness some hogs being euthanized. There's hogs being euthanized all over this part of the state, led out to the field and shot in the head. I mean, it's a terrible. I haven't seen it, but I don't want to see it either. It'd be a terrible thing to see. It'd be an even worse thing to see for the people who own the hogs, as they had to do this. And still we have our grocery shelves where a lot of meat is missing. There's not a full meat case in our grocery stores. That's for the first time in my lifetime, and I'm getting to be kind of an old guy. Not as old as you, but I'm getting to be kind of old.
Yeah, say, Mike. I'm happy to go back to that, but I'm just looking here and realize I didn't really give you a whole answer on the steering committee piece of this thing, and your listeners need to know that the people that spoke out against me, there are only 3 of them.
Yeah.
And there are 35 votes on the steering committee. They don't get to decide. They can cast their vote. They can speak if they want to. They already had spoken out against me. I have a whip list here. I counted the votes on the steering committee. I already had them down his nose. So they just weighed in. And but I'll just tell you what my whip card says, and I'm not going to name names on here so much. But I have those that will vote yes. There's 35 votes altogether. I have 15 yes votes. I have 7 likely yes votes. There are 3 no votes, 2 likely no votes, and 8 unknowns. And I think that I'll get at least half of those. So I added this up, and I think I have 26 of the 35 votes, and that's more than enough to put me back on all my committees. I just have to make sure we get the meeting. And Kevin McCarthy wasn't very timely in his responses to me. It was April 20th that we reached that agreement over the phone. And the next morning, I called a conference call, only the 3rd time in 18 years in Congress, a conference call with all my staff, both in Iowa and in D.C., at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, the morning after, and told them that he and I had reached an agreement and that Kevin McCarthy needed some time to just more or less take the temperature of the steering committee. I took it that he thought that he could do this by a consensus without even having a formal meeting. That was my understanding of it. But so that was April 20th, and the closer we get to this primary, the more it looks like that I don't want to let this primary go and not have people know. And in that debate, I had to give him a straight answer. I gave him a straight answer. What I said is the exact fact, and I've got a lot of texts and phone calls to back that all up. But nobody has ever made a credible case that I've been dishonest with them, either in the political world or in the campaign world. But there's some people running against me that can't say that, and they know that by now. They're selling their soul in this campaign, and that's how it gets once in a while. But I've got constituents that seem to be able to see through all of that, and I sure appreciate them.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest, Congressman Steve King. I'm going to give you a chance here today, sir, to answer all the tough allegations that have been leveled against you. In this case, it's Randy Feenstra. We have seen television commercials from Senator Feenstra that tell us that you've been in Congress 17 years and only passed 1 bill, and that was renaming a post office. Would you care to respond to that?
Well, the first bill that I introduced as a freshman member of Congress was a bill that opened up small ethanol producers and also credits for biodiesel producers. That became law as part of the Energy Users Act later on. My first bill became law. I passed 4 bills in I said 1 day, but it's actually 24 hours and 6 minutes in the previous Congress. So are they going to hold me accountable for what Mitch McConnell didn't do or what maybe President Obama or Nancy Pelosi didn't do? That's no way to measure a person's progress. If you're worried about your ego, go figure out how to write a bill that has your name on it that's not controversial in any way. It doesn't do anything. And sometimes you can get that passed, and then you say, see, look at me, I passed a bill with my name on it. No, this town works this way. They hand bills to people who are in marginal districts because they need to be able to go home and say, I passed a bill with my name on it. To give you an example, my repeal of Obamacare has passed the House, the full repeal, 4 separate times. And then one of those times, we had a freshman who had just won. I had 66 co-sponsors on my repeal, and John Boehner gave the bill to a freshman. I knew he had it before he knew he had it. And so I just sent a press release down to his hometown and said, thanks for running my bill. But also, there are amendments are bills, and it's different than what those guys know about what goes on in the State House. An amendment's the equivalent of a bill. And of everyone in this Congress, all 435 members, there's only one who has introduced more amendments than I have, and there's only one who has passed more amendments than I have, and only one who has a higher percentage of success than I do. That's Paul Gosar of Arizona. He is the most effective member of Congress, and by that measure, I'm the second most effective member of Congress, except when we work together, we're the most effective duo in Congress. So that's just one of those things where they will try to find a little statistic and then embellish that as if that means something. But there are many, many bills that I have brought in. And then, say, for example, there's one of them out there that says Steve King has never passed a farming bill with his name on it. That's the U.S. Chamber of Amnesty that's running that one. Never passed you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, but why are they weighing in on a farming bill? He's never passed a farming bill. Well, the farm bill has the chairman of the committee's name on it every time, and that's what they're referring to. And then they give a number for another bill, and they say, this is a top White House executive's bill, farm bill, and agriculture bill, and King won't co-sponsor it. So I thought, what is that? So we chased it back by bill number, and that's Mark Meadows, now the chief of staff for President Trump. Mark Meadows' bill that he introduced in April of 2019, it has 0 co-sponsors, 0. And so I'll just say Mark Meadows doesn't even support his own bill anymore. And I'm supposed to sign on to that in order to avoid the criticism from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce amnesty.
By the way, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is apparently contributing heavily to Randy Feenstra's campaign. Why do you think that is?
Well, because of their major donors that they have. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is run by the big billionaires, mostly hotel chains, restaurant chains, and those things. And they want cheap foreign labor. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has given me their Spirit of Enterprise Award every year that I've been in Congress, including this year. But we've had one argument all along, and that is I don't want to grant amnesty nor sacrifice the rule of law nor open up our borders. I think it's bad for our country. I think it destroys our country. And I've stood on that principle for a long, long time, well before I came to Congress. So they just decided that, this was their shot at getting me out of the way when we had, Republican former Senator Jeff Sessions, former Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and current Democrat Senator Mike Bennett both said within the last year, Steve King is responsible for killing amnesty every time it reared its ugly head. And so I'll take that compliment. Nobody does anything alone, but I organize efforts to do that, and the U.S. Chamber of Amnesty despises that ability to kill their agenda, which is amnesty. And that's why they're behind Randy Feenstra, by the way.
Yeah. Our guest is Congressman Steve King. We sometimes forget that the immigrants working in these packing plants are working for about half the money unionized packing plant people got back in the 70s. And, of course, Fort Dodge is an old packing plant town. We used to have Hormel and Iowa Beef here, and they were good union jobs, but they're out the window. I guess I'm leading up to a question here. Yours is an unusual position for a Republican to take, in that Republicans usually come down hard on the idea of unionization. They come down hard on the idea of organized labor in general. They are all in with the idea, and again, this is a business elite, they're all in on the idea that we have open borders. You as a Republican and a conservative have stood fast against that idea. Why?
Well, which idea did you mean I stood fast against?
Well, I mean, you have stood against the idea of illegal immigration, of large, unchecked, open borders type immigration that, frankly, some of the Republicans want, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce wants.
Well, we have a fair number of bought Republicans that they just look at their campaign donations and they essentially cave in. I owe people my best effort and my best judgment, and I laid out the principles that I believe in as a candidate. I repeat it anytime it's necessary or needed. Sometimes people say, we already know. Why are you telling us again? But this position that you can't be a nation without a border, and you have to secure your border or it's not a border. We have to be a nation who believes in the rule of law. That means all of our laws. We can't exempt immigration laws because we have powerful people who are who are capitalizing and getting, I'll say, rich off of cheap foreign labor, and they're dishing off the social costs to that cheap labor onto us. And we're borrowing money to the tune of $25 trillion, a lot of it from the Chinese, and we're going to owe our soul to the Chinese, our grandchildren's soul to the Chinese, because we have some powerful people that want cheap foreign labor, and we're supposed to cave into that. I'm not caving into anything that's not good for America. If you can convince me, fine, make your argument. But I'm not caving in because of political influence. But I will say, unions have a right to exist in this country. It's a free country. They can organize if they want to organize. Then they become a negotiating bloc. I don't think that we should allow any kind of union violence or anything of that nature, anything inappropriate. I think the owner and the employer has to have at least equal access to his employees to make the argument about whether those employees want to go union or not. Sometimes it weighs a company down, and sometimes they build a relationship that's there. UPS is unionized, and they seem to work pretty efficiently. So I give them a right to organize, and I'm not a great big fan of some of the union activity that goes on, but this is a free country, and I would never take the position that they couldn't organize.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Congressman Steve King. We'll be back.
Michael Devine, broadcasting live.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com or download the Babbel app and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Connect to this radio station from all across the country. Take us to the gym, shopping. How about a road trip? Listen to us now on the free iHeartRadio app. You'll never miss a moment with your favorite radio station. Download the free iHeartRadio app and search for this station so we can go wherever you want us to.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Welcome to Burger Palace. What would you like today?
Yes, I'd like to tell you that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
This is Burger Palace. Do you want any food?
Yes, one Palace party meal. No, Limu, they won't put insects on a burger. No, you can't talk to the manager.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Hardin County man has been arrested on more than a dozen charges after police say he sexually assaulted an underage girl for years. 58-year-old Robert Eakin is charged with 5 counts of sexual abuse, 5 counts of enticing a minor, 3 counts of lascivious acts with a child, and 1 count of human trafficking. Court documents say that the charges stem from alleged incidents that started in January 2016. At the time, the female victim was under the age of 13. Those incidents allegedly continued until January of this year. Police say on one occasion, Eakin offered the victim access to social media, food, and ice cream in exchange for sexual favors. Criminal complaints say that Eakin admitted to abusing the girl. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 21st. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue has announced that the USDA is investing more than $500,000 to provide broadband service in underserved rural areas in Iowa. Perdue said, quote, "I'm so proud of our rural communities who have been working day in and day out to produce the food and fiber America depends on. We need them now more than ever during these trying times, and expanding access to critical infrastructure will help ensure rural America prospers for years to come. Breda Telephone Corp will use a grant of over $500,000 to deploy a fiber-to-home network that will provide broadband connections for homes, farms, and businesses in Carroll County. Thursday afternoon, Webster County Public Health confirmed another resident has tested positive for COVID-19. The county's total positive case count as of Thursday is at 13. Public Health says 6 of those 13 have recovered, and the county has had 1 COVID-19 related death. Public health officials say that the age range of the newest case in the county is between 18 and 40. Webster County Pork Producers Association President Greg Hora spoke recently about the issues COVID-19 has presented for the pork industry in Iowa. Here's Greg Hora on the impact the pandemic is having on pork consumers.
How does this impact on consumers? And I always talk about the human health perspective and the nutrition perspective of any protein, and it's actually happening around the world right now. When we talk about exports and we talk about other people in the world that want to eat pork, they're buying at a ferocious pace right now. And in the last couple months, the pork prices have plummeted.
Hora went on to talk about the projected revenue losses for Iowa pork producers.
The CARD report, the Center of Agricultural Research down at Iowa State University, and projected that Iowa pork producers were going to lose $2 billion. Actually, it was $2.1 billion.
He says that he feels the revenue issues will not be quickly rectified.
That's $2 billion in Iowa. Pork industry nationwide, we're going to be down about $5 billion from where we were projected on March 1st. This thing has a long tail on it, which means there's going to be a lot of continued problems or losses for a prolonged period of time.
Iowa is the #1 state in the country in pork production and the top state for exporting pork. Outlets of Des Moines will host a drive-through food distribution this Sunday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The event is in partnership with Caring Hands Outreach Center. Each family will receive 25 pounds of non-perishable food with a limit of 1 per vehicle. The drive will distribute a total of 250 packages. Distribution is on a first-come, first-served basis for anyone who needs food. The drive will be located at the Outlets of Des Moines behind Polo Ralph Lauren, using the entrance off Adventureland Drive. For more information, visit caringhandsiowa.com. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn up 1 3/4 at $3.19 1/4. September up a penny at $3.23. December corn up a quarter penny at $3.32. March unchanged at $3.44 3/4. July soybeans up 1 1/2 at $8.38 1/2. August up 1 3/4 at $8.40 3/4. September up 1 3/4 at $8.41 1/4. November up 1 3/4 at $8.45 1/2. July wheat closed down 2 cents at $5 1/4. Soybean meal down 70 cents a ton at $2.8750. June live cattle up $2.87 at $97. August up 82 at $97.82. May feeder cattle up 92 cents at $124.72. August up 2 cents at $131.07. June lean hogs down 87 cents at $57.87, and July down 105 at $57.75. I am Dwayne Murley.
What beef brings to the table is the focus of Beef Month, which is the month of May. Hi, I'm Julie Harker, and this is Healthy Living on Brownfield. Jill Johnson is with the Illinois Beef Association.
This all kind of starts with a study that was conducted in January of 2012. The Beef in an Optimal Lean Diet study was conducted by researchers at Pennsylvania State University to kind of pinpoint where beef really fits in the optimal lean diet, and especially with kind of a heart-healthy movement. So they found that beef in a diet lowered the LDL cholesterol by 10%. and is certainly a nutrient-rich part of a meal. So there are 29 lean cuts of beef that are certified by the USDA as lean, and it's important to understand that the USDA defines lean as 10 grams of total fat per 3-ounce serving, and 3 ounces is roughly like the size of a deck of cards. And lean cuts of beef also have 4.5 grams less saturated fat and less than 95 milligrams of cholesterol per 3-ounce serving.
We'll have more about beef's nutrients on the next Healthy Living. In the meantime, go to beefnutrition.org. I'm Julie Harker.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
I'm a wife,
a sister,
and a grandfather.
I'm an office clerk.
I'm a research analyst,
dance fitness instructor,
actor.
I'm a copywriter.
I'm a veteran.
I have lupus,
cerebral palsy.
I'm blind.
And I'm working in a job I love.
Because I was given a chance
to contribute my skills and talents.
To show that my disability
is only one part of who I am.
Who I am.
Who I am.
At work, it's what people can do that matters.
For more information, visit whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
The great American outdoors are right outside your back door. Get a great deal on a great tool when you save $20 on the tough and dependable Stihl MS-170 chainsaw. Shop online, pick up at any of over 9,000 local Stihl dealers. Find yours at stihldealers.com. Offer valid for a limited time at participating dealers while supplies last. See dealer for details and consult state local guidelines for availability of promotional products and pricing in your area.
Today on This Old But Still Nice House.
Hey, I'm going to start on getting that paint off the windowsill.
Wouldn't do that. This house was built before 1978. That's probably lead-based paint.
I don't think there's enough here to make a difference. Can't I just do it?
Sure. We can start the Lead Professional Certification Program on the Iowa Department of Public Health's website. Or we could just go to the site and find someone from their list of certified professionals. Seriously, stop scraping. Find out what happens on the next episode of This Old But Still Nice House.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Congressman Steve King. Always a pleasure to have Congressman King on the air. I want to jump right into it with you again. I was reading the Wall Street Journal, I think, on Tuesday, and I was astonished to see that Adam Schiff, Congressman Adam Schiff, the Darth Vader of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party in California, knew from the beginning that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, as far as a collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, but he pursued it anyway and insisted on an impeachment effort. How is that man not in jail?
Boy, it is outrageous. And, I'm a little bit flabbergasted, more than a little bit. I've watched this thing, of course, all along, and most of these people that show up on the screen the last few days that have unmasked General Flynn, that baseball team or more, but I guess it went to maybe 36 to start with, and now up to 40 or so that have unmasked General Flynn. And then with Adam Schiff being the mouthpiece for all of this, and look what he did. He'd do one thing back in the committee with the doors closed, and another one back onto the press. He was on television every day, usually multiple networks, voicing this. And when they would say, "Where's your evidence?" he'd say, "It's hiding in plain sight." Well, how did that get to be an answer that could be accepted even by the left? And then the shenanigans that he pulled too by editing and trying to limit the witnesses. I'm talking to these guys that are sitting down in that skiff in that secret room in the basement of the Capitol, and I'm learning there that Adam Schiff is cutting in on witnesses to keep them from giving the answers, so that those answers are going under oath. They're going into a transcript. But Adam Schiff is a guy that decides what the transcript is, what's going to be redacted and what isn't. So but the DNI, Rick Grinnell, he is acting right now, and I think he's done a courageous thing. They have the authority to unclassify, declassify that information. They did, and then that really forced Adam Schiff into releasing it. This is the opening now, and it's an opening that gives us an opportunity to see General Flynn exonerated. He deserves that. I've never walked away from him. I've had him as a guest speaker. I don't say that I know him as a kind of a personal friend where we sit around and chat, but we've had those kind of conversations. And I remember telling his son how fortunate he is to be born into that family, to have a man like Mike Flynn as his father. And so to see him targeted like this with the full force of the weaponized executive branch of government, and for what I'm going through also, I mean, I see the similarities. And now we have General Flynn as being defended by some Republicans other than me, and I defended him all along through. I never left him. As a matter of fact, there's an article, and I think I'm not sure where it was actually published. We'll have that out in a little bit later on today. There was an article written that told about how I stood with General Flynn that I didn't even know was even coming. It was published today and in some network. We'll put it up on our website if we haven't already. But I stood with him all along. I've always thought that I smelled a rat in there. And it came to this place that in the end, they removed him they fired him from his job as a national security advisor. And
on the first day, on the first day they were after him. The very first day he took his new job, there were FBI agents in his office demanding answers to their questions.
That's true. That would be January 5th, I think it was. Even
probably,
before
yeah.
He was, but also KT McFarland is a personal friend. She's closer to me than I am with General Flynn. And I remember I went to visit her in the West Wing of the White House back in the day when you could just walk in and walk around. And every office I walked into, sometimes I walked in by accident, sometimes on purpose by accident. There'd always be somebody in there that I'd worked with along the way, somebody that was a friend. KT is just way smart. And she said that she and General Flynn are collateral damage, that they were trying to get to President Trump through Flynn. But also she said that Flynn had a strategy to strip down the intelligence community and get the deadwood out of there and the leftists out of there and those that have sympathy for Karl Marx's ideology. I'm adding a few extra words to what she said, by the way, just out of full disclosure here. And so they were going to turn over that intelligence community, which hadn't happened since Ronald Reagan. And I remember asking one of those dark ops speakers that I had, and I can't give his name because he was speaking off the record in private, but he's been operating in that arena for a career. And I remember asking him, can Bill Barr get this job done? Can he clean up justice in the FBI and go on into these other agencies? And the answer I got back from that dark ops, wise, principled patriot was, well, I think Barr is a good man, but he's surrounded by 1,000 James Comeys still. And I don't know if that number's right or if it's an exaggeration, but I get the point. There's still people within there that are going to push back and make it hard for us to get to the truth. Look how hard it's been to get to just these who unmasked. Vice President Joe Biden called for an unmasking of Flynn. And the rest of those folks from Comey to Brennan and Clapper and Powers, and it just goes on and on. They're people that I've faced, and I watched their demeanor, and it's not just what they say in the transcript, which you didn't get to watch their demeanor down in Adam Schiff's secret room down there. Instead, you get to read a redacted transcript. But watching that demeanor is really important on telling what's truth and what isn't. And I really picked that up with Rod Rosenstein. I remember when he was asked, did the FBI pay for the dossier? And I saw his body just moved and kind of curled down, and his head went down a little bit to the side, not straight down, but to the side. It was like a dog that was getting ready to get kicked is what I thought, that expected to get kicked. And then the answer, of course, I don't remember. It was a meaningless answer, but the body language told me something, and I think I was right. In fact, I'm really confident I was right. So there's so much more to come out of this, and I want to see General Flynn completely exonerated. He deserves it. And here's what I wanted to add to this. When they threw General Flynn under the bus, there wasn't a single high-profile Republican that defended him. They just decided he was a political liability, pushed him under the bus, and the vice president's position was that Flynn had lied to him. Now his position is that maybe Flynn didn't brief him the full story. I'd sure like it if they would have gone to the original source before they decided Flynn didn't tell the truth. I'm expressing a disappointment here, but I'm also experiencing it on my end, that I can put the facts in front of these people over and over again. They just don't respond, and because they don't like the narrative that comes out of the truth.
Well, let's not forget that the FBI threatened to throw Mike Flynn's son in jail. I don't know what the charge they had on him was. They threatened to throw his son in prison if he didn't plead guilty, like right now. So he did. And he's been fighting to overturn that ever since.
Well, that's true, Mike, and that needs to be said. And now that Judge Sullivan has appointed Gleason as his special prosecutor to try to figure out how they're going to be able to punish Mike Flynn, and the subject seems to be, well, if he didn't lie to the FBI, but he must have lied when he said he lied. So if it wasn't the truth when he said he lied, so he lied.
Where does this
punish him for perjury?
Where does this Sullivan guy come off? Is he still living back in the early 2000s when the Supreme Court acted like emperors? And Frank, I hope we're moving to a time when they don't. That's why we need another Trump re-election. A judge sets aside the Justice Department's ruling. No, we're not going to do that because I'm a judge. Nobody elected me, but I'm just going to let all these other people who were upset by what happened to weigh in, and then I'll consider their opinion. What is that?
Boy, it's outrageous. I know of no case like that anywhere in all the time that I've been involved in this on the Judiciary Committee. You know, that Sullivan is an Obama appointee, and I think he had verbally brought up the issue and said, "Is Flynn guilty of treason?" A death penalty charge. He just voiced in open court as if, and that's of course that's a way to I'll say perjure the Supreme Court or the court decision in a way. If it loads against, if a judge says, "Are you guilty of treason?" when he's got a perjury case before him, that's loading things up to looking for something else and maybe starting some other kind of prosecution. I don't think he has any right to do what he's done. I thought Trey Gowdy answered it right. He said, the Justice Department has said they don't have a case. You're supposed to drop the case when you don't have a case. They have said they've withdrawn. They're not going to prosecute. The judge can't prosecute. He can only sit in judgment. So good luck prosecuting Mike Flynn, judge. And the judge seemed to come up with a creative way to try to establish a special investigation now. Those are naked politics on the part of the judge.
Oh, absolutely. Hi, I'm a judge, so I'm going to twist whatever legal logic around this idea that I can and feed it to you, and you can't disagree with me because I'm the judge. I mean, it's the most undemocratic idea or institution I have ever come across in my life. Really, we cannot continue with judicial monarchy, and that's exactly what it is, and call ourselves a free people. We just cannot do that. If we have 9 or 7 unelected jurists leading us and making laws and telling us how we're going to speak and telling us how we're going to think and tell us how we're going to dress, that's what they do in China, for God's sake. This is the United States. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be free people. Freedom shouldn't come with a permission slip. I saw that on a editorial on a political on a political cartoon just the other day. But don't get
that's why I support constitutional concealed carry, Mike. You shouldn't have to have a permit to do that, which is guaranteed by the Constitution.
Well, there are people who like that sort of power. You know, there are people who just love that sort of power. But I could get going on all this all day, and Congressman King wouldn't get a chance to talk again, so I better not do that. I want to. I'll have you briefly comment on Nancy Pelosi and her $3 trillion aid package. I know we spoke about it just a little bit ago, but I assume that has no chance of passing. Further, what I really would like to find out is what the plan is, Congressman King. We've heard all these stay in place. We need these testing procedures. We need masks. We need PPE. We need this, that. Okay, fine. Great. I mean, you're doing your job as leaders of our country. But what is going to happen now? Now that you've had time to digest the COVID virus, which is a deadly virus, we all know that. What's the plan? Are we going to stay in place forever? There was that Mr. Bright, Dr. Bright, who seemed to suggest that just a little earlier. He suggested this: if we do not keep these restrictions in place, it's going to be a dark, cold winter. It was vivid imagery. I know that. What does he expect us to do? What do people like him expect us to do? Because he's in Congress right now as a whistleblower, getting all kinds of praise from, wow, what a surprise, Democrats. So, again, Nancy Pelosi and her $3 trillion deal. And what are we going to do here, Congressman King? We need to know what's going on.
Well, Mike, as we're speaking, I'm watching her speak on the floor of the House of Representatives with her mask under her chin right now so that she can speak clearly into the microphone. That's fine. But just giving you a little bit of a scene update. And I think that you got the medical people. If you'd only let the medical people speak on this, they would have us all shut down in a quarantine until the virus disappeared and there wasn't another active case anywhere. That would be the safest way to go, and that'd be the medical thing to do. But we did that early on, and we did flatten the curve. And I'm not convinced that, I'll say this. I think we overdid it to a degree. I'm not sure what that degree is, and I need a couple more Monday mornings before I'm going to tell you what I think we might have done differently. First, I would have never closed the churches. That's the one. That one just hurts the Constitution and our freedom, and it hurts our souls. So, at any case, it's not just a medical question. It's a medical question, yes. It's an economic question. It's a social question. And in the end, it's a cultural question. What kind of risks are we willing to take, and how do we go about doing this? Because the freedom that you lack when you're quarantined in your home isn't the kind of life that most of us want to live for the rest of our life. And so I say this, that I think the governor's done, on balance, a pretty good job of not tying down the whole state and then opening up the first of 77 counties. And now at 5 o'clock this morning, you can go get a haircut. That's good because I need one.
Really.
But we need it. But this, in the end, it's a political question. The political question that needs to balance the medicine, the medical side, the economic side, and the cultural part of all of this to come around with what's the best answer. And I say this is that let's make these decisions as close to where people are going to be living them as possible. Not out of Washington, not a one-size-fits-all, not a one-size-fits-all out of Des Moines. We can make that decision county by county. We can even make it city by city. But here's what we need, and I don't believe they're coming through on this yet. First of all, this is one of my criticisms of the governor's way she's handled this, is that first we spent about 10 or 12 days working to try to get the numbers of those who recovered from this virus listed on the governor's website. We finally got that. But you had to go click on every county and then do the math to get down to the number of net active cases in the county. So we put a map up on my website, steveking.com website, that has all the counties in Iowa on it and the net active cases, and then all the other data is there available too. But that's the one that's missing. And then about a week ago, they just shut that part off. So now we don't know how many net active cases there are county by county. They give you the number at the state level, but they don't let you find out in the counties. That's just a tiny little piece of the data we need. But what we need to do, and I have this form set up, and I've given this information to the governor and the White House, and that's that to gather all the data from anyone who tests positive. That data would be birth date, height, weight, any pre-existing conditions, and a person's sex. And then put that in the database so the outcomes are tagged to those characteristics. And then if you want to know what your risk is, you can go on a website. There'll be a query there where you put your birth date in there, your height, your weight, your pre-existing conditions, your sex, and it'll come back and tell you, well, of the 4,000 people who are similarly situated, X percentage were asymptomatic, X percentage recovered at home, so many went to the hospital, the ICU, intubated, and from there either home or sadly to the cemetery. We need that information, that data,
yes,
so that we can decide ourselves where we want to go and when we want to go, Mike.
Congressman Steve King is our guest. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, sir. Thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
All right. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
heated debate on the HEROES Act. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi chastising Republicans who said it's not time yet for another stimulus bill. She says the virus and suffering that goes with it don't take a pause. But Republicans say the $3 trillion bill up for a vote today should have had input at the committee level.
The founders would be ashamed of today. This is not what they envisioned. This is not what they believed in.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says Pelosi should bring the House back for normal business, not just for today's vote. President Trump has called the bill dead on arrival, but says there will be talks on another coronavirus relief package. He's touting fast-track efforts to find a vaccine.
President Trump in the White House Rose Garden announcing Operation Warp Speed, an administration effort to have a coronavirus vaccine by the end of this year.
When a vaccine is ready, the U.S. government will deploy every plane, truck, and soldier required to help distribute it to the American people as quickly as possible.
Scientists who are a part of the administration's coronavirus vaccine project have identified 14 vaccines to focus on for development. The president said he would rapidly mobilize the U.S. military to distribute a vaccine once it's ready, focusing first on nursing homes and the elderly.
Fox's John Decker in Washington. This weekend is a big deal for NASCAR fans, but really sports fans in general. After a more than 2-month drought, live racing returns with the Real Heroes 400 Sunday on Fox.
The real heroes in this entire fight against COVID-19 are the frontline health workers. And so each of the drivers, instead of having their driver name over the door, they will have a healthcare official that they've picked.
NASCAR President Steve Phelps telling Fox and Friends 3 dozen healthcare workers will also be part of a mosaic giving the Start Your Engines command. America is listening to Fox News.
This is a last chance alert. It's happening. Publishers Clearinghouse is ready to award $5,000 a week for life in just days. Enter now at PCH.com and you could win $5,000 a week after week, for life. Don't miss this last chance to win $5,000 a week for life on June 30th. Enter at PCH.com before it's too late. That's PCH.com. Better hurry if you want the next big winner to be you. Enter now at PCH.com. Entries due 6/25. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited.
This is Peter on his motorcycle.
The open road!
And this is Peter off his motorcycle.
Please move your paper off my desk. Thank you.
On his motorcycle.
I feel so alive!
Off his motorcycle.
I feel like we covered that already, so...
On.
Wow! Look at the ocean!
Off.
Look at this article I found about urban planning.
You're better on your bike. Progressive helps keep you on it. Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
As more places move to mail-in elections, there's growing concern about who's getting a ballot.
In Nevada, elections officials said they were going to send everyone mail-in ballots in time for the June 9th primary. But then there were some issues. In Clark County, home to Las Vegas, several Democratic groups, including the DNC and DCCC, sued. But they've since agreed to drop their lawsuit over some promised changes, including that officials are sending mail-in ballots to even inactive voters. Now, though, there are reports of piled-up ballots at certain mailboxes, like at apartment complexes. One postal worker even told Fox News it just looks fraudulent. Among the changes, though, are also that 2 elections workers from both parties will review election signatures on each ballot. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
New York still has by far the most coronavirus cases and deaths in the U.S., but 5 regions of the state not near New York City are able to start easing restrictions today. And Governor Andrew Cuomo says beaches can open for Memorial Day weekend.
Social distancing will be enforced for employees and for visitors. Masks must be worn by employees, and visitors must have masks and wear them when they can't socially distance.
But he says picnic areas, arcades, and playgrounds will be closed and no group activities will be allowed, such as volleyball. And local beaches have the option to stay closed, but if they open, must follow the same guidelines. It's being done in cooperation with surrounding states. The White House keeps getting asked why the president doesn't wear a mask, even if just to set an example.
That's his personal choice, and I would note is consistent with the CDC guidelines, which say they recommend, but it's the personal choice of the individual.
Spokeswoman Kayleigh McEnany also noting he's tested daily. Meantime, Vice President Mike Pence still keeping his distance for now after a staffer tested positive. Stocks finish higher, the Dow up 60 points. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones. A Hardin County man has been arrested on more than a dozen charges after police say he sexually assaulted an underage girl for years. 58-year-old Robert Eakin is charged with 5 counts of sexual abuse, 5 counts of enticing a minor, 3 counts of lascivious acts with a child, and 1 count of human trafficking. Court documents say that the charges stem from alleged incidents that started in January 2016. At the time, the female victim was under the age of 13. Those incidents allegedly continued until January of this year. Police say on one occasion, Eakin offered the victim access to social media, food, and ice cream in exchange for sexual favors. Criminal complaints say that Eakin admitted to abusing the girl. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for May 21st. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue has announced that the USDA is investing more than $500,000 to provide broadband service in underserved rural areas in Iowa. Perdue said, quote, "I'm so proud of our rural communities who have been working day in and day out to produce the food and fiber America depends on. We need them now more than ever during these trying times, and expanding access to critical infrastructure will help ensure rural America prospers for years to come." Breda Telephone Corp will use a grant of over $500,000 to deploy a fiber-to-home network that will provide broadband connections for homes, farms, and businesses in Carroll County. Thursday afternoon, Webster County Public Health confirmed another resident has tested positive for COVID-19. The county's total positive case count as of Thursday is at 13. Public Health says 6 of those 13 have recovered, and the county has had 1 COVID-19-related death. Public health officials say that the age range of the newest case in the county is between 18 and 40. Webster County Pork Producers Association President Greg Hora spoke recently about the issues COVID-19 has presented for the pork industry in Iowa. Here's Greg Hora on the impact the pandemic is having on pork consumers.
How does this impact on consumers? And I always talk about the human health perspective and the nutrition perspective of any protein, and it's actually happening around the world right now. When we talk about exports and we talk about other people in the world that want to eat pork, they're buying at a ferocious pace right now. And in the last couple months, the pork prices have plummeted.
Hora went on to talk about the projected revenue losses for Iowa pork producers.
The CARD report, the Center of Agricultural Research down at Iowa State University, and projected that Iowa pork producers were going to lose $2 billion. Actually, it was $2.1 billion.
He says that he feels the revenue issues will not be quickly rectified.
That's $2 billion in Iowa. Pork industry nationwide, we're going to be down about $5.
That's me, Big Mike. All right.
Through food distribution this Sunday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. The event is in partnership with Caring Hands Outreach Center. Each family will receive 25 pounds of non-perishable food with a limit of 1 per vehicle. The drive will distribute a total of 250 packages. Distribution is on a first-come, first-served basis for anyone who needs food. The drive will be located at the outlets of Des Moines behind Polo Ralph Lauren using the entrance off Adventureland Drive. For more information, visit caringhandsiowa.com. That's your Alpha Media News Update from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom. I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD Weatherology forecast. Mainly sunny skies and calm this afternoon with a high of 73. Winds out of the north, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, 50. Scattered thunderstorms likely tomorrow, high of 69. Mid-60s Sunday with a chance for scattered rain showers. Low 70s, partly cloudy Monday. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 72.
Michael Devine, Nevin Mulholland, and Randy Kuhlman talking sports at AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. Randy's gone today, so it's the Big Mike, Big Nev show. How you doing there, Big Nev?
Hey, Mike, I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Do you think we ought to call Randy Big Randy? That kind of sounds like a porn star name or something.
What?
Big Mike and Big Nev sound okay for a sports show. I was trying to include Randy in this, but Big Randy sounds like a porn star name. I mean, we'll have to think of some. We'll have
yeah. That's too many bigs.
Too many. The Mighty Randy or something. I don't know. I'll have to work on it. Anyway, this is the sports show. Nevin and I are Cub fans, and of course, we're not getting a lot of Cub action here lately. We're normally, if this were a normal reality that we're living in, 30% of the Cub games would have already been played. And David Ross would be, he'd be a hero to Cub fans, or they'd be already hissing him from the stands. On the Cubs, and we'll get to what they're going to do with the season, but this is Chris Bryant's last year. And I know we've talked about Chris Bryant before, and you don't think losing him is that big a deal. I do. Why do you think Chris Bryant, we could let him go?
No. I've never thought it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it is, and I prefer not to let him go. The problem is he's going to want a heck of a lot of money. Scott Boras is his agent. And I just think they don't believe that they can sign him for a reasonable sum, reasonable being their definition.
Yeah, sure. Frankly, I'm a Chris Bryant fan, but he has been a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, he got hurt, and he never really seemed to come back. He hasn't hit over 300. He hasn't put up a lot of home runs. He's okay in the field. But I kind of expected more from him for some reason. But he's a solid player. I think he's popular in Chicago. And some of the trades and some of the people the Cubs have let go here in the last few years has kind of bothered me. And, of course, Yu Darvish is still sticking out there as kind of a painful spot for me. Even though he did show some stuff last year, he certainly hasn't earned his money yet.
Well, his numbers were terrific last year, Mike. They just were. Everybody wants to throw that guy under the bus. And the first year, he struggled. But, look at Arrieta, who we let go and took Darvish. Arrieta hasn't torn it up, since he's went to the Phillies. And Yu Darvish has got a lot more tread left on those tires than Arrieta does.
I have I have fond memories of Arrieta. I've told you this on air before. He is the only Cub pitcher. I started watching a Cub game at night in the summer, of course, and I don't even remember the opponent. But Arrieta was on the mound, and he was having a great year. And he pitched a no-hitter. That's the only game I've ever watched start to finish where a no-hitter was pitched. And Arrieta was terrific. He was just terrific.
Well, and I think it was against the Dodgers, Mike.
I think you might be right.
The same game.
You might be right, but
it was so exciting. I mean, to stumble onto a game on a weekday.
Yeah,
it was in the evening,
and
then you're watching a guy throw a no hitter.
And he was just solid and focused the whole game. So he went to the
very cool.
You're right. Arrieta hasn't performed that well in Philadelphia, and that always kind of surprises me. Verlander has been at a number of different teams. He's been great with every single team. At least I think.
No, he's been great at Houston. He's been wonderful, terrific. I mean, jeepers.
He was even great with the Tigers, and the Tigers aren't that good a team. Haven't been that good a team for years.
He's great with the Tigers. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But my point is, the Tigers let him go, and he hasn't missed much of a beat since Lee. I mean, and he is an older pitcher player. And as you well know, and as you've spoke before, the Cubs could have had him.
Oh, yeah, that hurts. But there's a lot of they should have kept Greg Maddux for that matter, but that was years ago. I'm over it,
Well, that was more. Yeah, they want. I think Maddox kind of wanted to leave. But they wouldn't pay him. You're right. So see you later.
Yeah, it happens.
That's stupid. That was a killer. I hated that.
Yeah, I hate
that happen.
Oh, yeah. He was young, too. We had him when he was young, and he was just coming into his own. He was doing there was something about Maddox that I could never really warm up to him personally, but I had to admire his great talent, and you could just see it on him even when he was that young. Of course, he went to the Braves and blew minds. I mean, he was something else.
Well, he blew minds with the Cubs, too, though. He was great when he was with the Cubs.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I
Yeah.
mean, he was... As I mentioned, he was just starting to come into his own. He was maturing as a ball player, and he looked really good, and he looked like the top prospect in the league, which it turned out he was. Young prospect in the league, and off he goes. Did he go right to the Braves? I think he did.
Yes, he did.
Oh, bummer. I don't know what he saw.
Yeah.
I don't know what he saw there, but, God, that Braves... that's one great thing about having to watch classic baseball on ESPN is you get to see a lot of old games and old faces. And, gosh, I forgot about the great Braves teams in the 90s with Bobby Cox, as their manager, and Glavine.
That pitching staff was to die for.
Oh, Maddox, Glavine, John Schmaltz, and
right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And people forget how good, because of Glavine and Maddox, people forget how good John Schmaltz was. And he was terrific.
Right. He was just about as good a pitcher as he is broadcaster.
Yeah, well, he's a good broadcaster.
He does a great job.
Oh, I do too. He's a great broadcaster. Not everybody can make that jump, but he has done it. There's been a few that have done it. Don Drysdale in his time did it. He did a great job as a broadcaster. I'll think of a couple others.
Smoltz is still very good. He does color. He does, and he's very insightful. I really enjoy listening to him, and he's usually right about 95% of the time on whatever pitch is coming, whatever play is being put on. He's the Tony Romo of Major League Baseball.
We would be remiss, of course, if we didn't congratulate Drake Ayala, not only for being a great wrestler, but he's an academic All-American. And a lot of time that gets ignored, how the kid's doing in school. But Drake certainly didn't ignore it. And he has a very bright future with the University of Iowa. I'm glad he stayed in the state. We have
what a luxury, Mike. What a luxury, the University of Iowa. First, he's a great wrestler, but excuse me. But then to get a great student on top of it, and I don't know how to say this and be politically correct, but oftentimes these wrestlers can be a handful in the classroom.
There's no doubt. I mean, I remember being in high school, and Dan Gable and Chuck Jean and these guys were down at ISU. ISU was the dominant power at the time. They'd go from bar to bar and just start stuff. They come in and say, we're the wrestlers. We're NCAA champions. You want to mess with us?
Well, often they are not driven in the classroom. That's kind of secondary.
Yeah.
Putting this in a very politically correct way, that the whole educational process isn't at the top of their priority list.
Well, and there's another thing, and the real reason I'm bringing this up, it needs to be noted anyway, no matter what. But wrestlers don't go on to the major leagues and make several $1 million a year. They become coaches somewhere. Kevin Dresser, great high school athlete from Humboldt and now down at ISU, he coached at the high school level out in Virginia or West Virginia, I guess, for many, many years. And he was fortunate to come back here, and we're fortunate to have him. But again, he was a top guy. He was a top guy in his field, and he was coaching high school, and that happens to a lot of people. I think I saw Josh Porter, who wrestled 20 years ago here in Fort Dodge, who was a state champ, maybe 2-time state champ, and I think he was an assistant coach, wrestling coach, or maybe head coach here in Iowa somewhere. He showed up with his team at the Fort Dodge Invitational, the Don Miller Invitational, one year, and I spoke with him just for a moment. But that's what happens even with top wrestlers. The reason it's important for wrestlers to do well in academics, as Drake Ayala, is they already have the work ethic. They already have this supercharged work ethic. So if they should get into finance or any sort of business, and they've decided they're going to do well, they have a very, very good chance of overachieving in whatever field that they choose. And
well, I've always said that if you can wrestle in high school in the state of Iowa, everything else in life will be downhill.
Well, I think that's probably true. There's a lot of truth to that. And
I believe it. It's the toughest sport there is, physically and mentally demanding. And if you can do that, and if you're, I don't care if you can just do it. I don't care how successful you are, but if you can wrestle 4 years in high school or 2 years, whatever the case may be, man, that toughens a kid up. That and the physical and mental demands of that sport are second to none.
That's right. And you can be a little guy in that sport and still be outstanding, still stand out, I should say. You know, sometimes size matters in basketball and football, but in wrestling, everybody has their moment in the sun, or they should have a moment in the sun, I should say. Anyway,
well, you're competing with somebody your own size.
Right, and that's good.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's all
yeah.
good.
You know, I've enjoyed my reading in the Messenger, you know, in the sports about these high school athletes that they're acknowledging that have been either on state tournament teams or individual state champions. But it's fun to read about these kids, listen to hear what they have to say, and see where they've ended up. And I've been impressed. I mean, it goes to your point that these kids took, for the most part, took their education seriously, and they've done extremely well since getting out of athletics.
Yeah, Tim Krieger, and I saw him a couple times down here in Fort Dodge when he was in school. He was from Mason City, a Mason City kid, and he was terrific in high school, and then he went on to a great career at ISU. But he went on to a terrific career in Minneapolis in finance. I think I heard through the grapevine somewhere that he had a little trouble up there for some reason. But he's done real well in his life. And I think most wrestlers who, as you say, stick it out. I don't care. Sports is educational. Wrestling being one of the tougher in my book, and yours, it sounds like. But if you can compete in high school sports, that is so educational. It teaches you a lot about yourself and other people and competition and learning to win and lose and what it takes. And it's a wonderful thing for a young person to get into. I hate it when I hear that participation in football is falling off. Yeah, it's a tough sport. Yeah, sure it is. And I know there have been problems with concussions, and I'm not sneezing at that. The story that you had about that Urbandale game when you were knocked unconscious, for God's sake, and left in the game, that's a terrible story. It's funny, but
well, I'm a poster boy for not playing football because I don't know what day it is half the time. But, yeah, people will tell you that.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though.
Here's what I'll tell you about high school football. It is, for me, out of all the sports that I participated in, it was the best because you went out there with all your buddies back in the day. You were all on the team. They could always find a spot for you. A lot of people played, and you did it with your buddies on a Friday night. You got out there, you competed. It was just wonderful, high school football was. I loved it, you know, and there was nothing like it because you didn't get to do that for the most part in other sports. There was just something really just intoxicating about football, and being able to do it and share it with all the guys that you'd grown up with.
Yeah. I still love high school football.
A true team sport.
It is, and I still love high school football. I mean, I go to ISU games, and I got to get over to a UNI game this year. I've been to a UNI game in 25 years, I bet. But just because I'm a fan, I think I'll go. And of course, I've gone to a lot of U of I games over the years, in the bad times and the good times. So
well, you may not be going to any games this year. But
well, gee, that would drive me crazy. Come on, you got to admit it. I mean, I keep asking everybody, what's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan for getting baseball going on? Because I'll tell you, I am jonesing bad on baseball because that's my sport. That's my favorite sport, and I'm not getting it. In years past, I had several channels I could go to, but this year, nothing. I'm getting caught up.
You know what? Baseball's got to be careful here. I am telling you, these players have to be careful with how they approach this, with the plan being rolled out by Major League Baseball. Where they're going to get adversarial and have eventually will be on the money. And I understand their position, that they had a deal, they struck a deal with the owners of Major League Baseball, and now the owners want to back up on it. But public perception will be tough on these people because most of them are millionaires, and public perception will be, are you kidding me? You don't think they're getting enough money, and you're making millions even with the reduced amount of money that you will receive? I think they got to be real careful with how they handle this.
Yeah. Well, gosh, this is such an unreal time in history, really, and in our lives especially. I'm getting to be an old sucker, so are you. And I've never seen anything like this. I just have never... I've never gone to a grocery store in my life and saw meat rationing or grocery stores out of certain cuts of meat altogether. I've never seen it, and it's just... I'm glad we're getting. I'm glad we're getting opened up a little bit. Hope everything works out well. I wear my mask. I do all those things, but I would just like to see. And I know I sound like a kid when it comes to baseball, and that's because I am a kid when it comes to baseball. And I want to see the major leagues start up again. But
Mike, I have no problem in some respects in prioritizing the testing of pro athletes and taking steps that might not be applied to the public to get sports back, because I think it would do so much for the morale of the country, believe it or not, that to have sports back again. And so I think they really need to prioritize it, and not for any other reason that I just think it will be good for us.
Oh, that's what's lost. You probably missed my great letter to the editor in the Des Moines Register, I think, on Tuesday. It was whenever the 14th was. No, the 14th was yesterday. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. But anyway, I brought up this point that you don't... those who want to keep us inside seem to ignore the emotional and financial cost to most people in our state. I mean, not everybody is a wealthy retired public employee somewhere. There are people who live paycheck to paycheck. They work at packing plants. Yes, they do. They work all over the place. They need to get back up and running. And I know what I'm saying. I know when we open up, there might be a spike in deaths, and that's terrible. But I really think we need to have a morale boost, as you put it. Anyway, Nevin, call us back in about 8 minutes, will you?
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Michael Devine, Nevin Mulholland, and Randy Kuhlman talking sports at AM 1400 KVFD.
It's 4:29.
Daniel Pharmacy knows it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. The sun will still come up, the sun will still go down, and people will still need their medications. So Daniel's is offering curbside pickup. Call or use their mobile app for script refills. Then head on down and park in one of their specially marked spots on 12th Street. Give them a call when you get there and they'll bring your prescription out to you. They're also doing no-contact delivery. Daniel Pharmacy, caring for you and about you for over 50 years on Central Avenue, Fort Dodge.
During this challenging and unprecedented time, Gunderson's is here to serve with expert guidance and understanding to each family and their unique needs. We provide options for funeral, cremation, memorial, virtual, and webcast services, either presently or at a later date. We understand that grief does not wait. We are trained to help you walk this path to bring comfort and support. Every life deserves to be recognized and celebrated, whether it be together or afar.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Young with Brownfield Ag News. Every day, our team brings you the most relevant and timely agricultural news. Now you can listen to the week's top stories in the wrap. Call pound 250 and give the keyword Brownfield Ag News. It's as simple as that. How is COVID-19 impacting agriculture this week? Those stories and more sent right to your phone with the wrap. Dial pound 250 and use the keyword Brownfield Ag News.
If you want a herbicide that's effective on weeds in your cornfield and cost-effective for your bottom line, look no further than Halex GT. It delivers broad-spectrum weed control to keep even the toughest weeds at bay. Plus, Halex GT comes in a high-quality formulation and offers the flexibility to apply it up to a 30-inch crop height. See your Syngenta retailer to start controlling weeds today with Halex GT. Always read and follow label instructions.
Here at Rocket Mortgage and the Rock family of companies, every one of our team members knows a hero.
My Uncle Paul, who works long hours at the grocery store to make sure that people can put food on the table.
We really want to thank my wife's cousin Marie, who works so hard as a nurse saving others.
Thank you for being a hero in our community, Des Marie.
To those who leave their homes to keep us safe in ours, we thank you. From the front lines to behind the scenes, we see you. You're essential every day, and today, you're heroes.
You're giving families everywhere a little more hope for a healthier tomorrow.
We're sending all our love, gratitude, and hope your way.
Here's to all of you. We couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
And yeah, you guys are awesome.
Say we miss you, Mama.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you'd like to thank America's frontline and essential workers with us, visit everyoneknowsahero.com. Quicken Loans, LLC, NMLS number 3030, licensed in 50 states. Each legal entity that identifies themselves as part of the Rock family of companies are separate legal entities with their own governance and management structures.
Your circle of care is more important now than ever. Mercy One is innovating to keep you healthy, including virtual visits with your doctor from the comfort and safety of your home. Visits are easy. During virtual appointments, providers can prescribe or adjust medications, review test results, coordinate additional treatment options, assess whether further care is needed, and much more. Call your primary care or specialist office today to connect with your doctor. Mercy One, your best life, our one purpose.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge, 4:33, 27 minutes before 5 o'clock. And the weather forecast, first of all, it's 73 degrees and fair outside. What a day. Overnight, cloudy with a low of 50. Tomorrow, showers and thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon with a high of 70. On Sunday, some showers, mostly cloudy with a high of 62. Monday, mostly sunny with a high of 70. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 77. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 81. And on Thursday, it'll be sunny with a high of 83. So that ain't bad. 73 degrees right now in Fort Dodge. AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Phil Ladley has died. Philip Ladley has passed away at the age of 78. He died at the Paula J. Baber Hospice Home. Memorials may be sent to Unity Point Hospice. Philip Ladley of Fort Dodge has died. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucefuneralhome.com. 434 at AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. July corn up 1 3/4 at $3.19 1/4. September up a penny at $3.23. December corn up a quarter penny at $3.32. March unchanged at $3.44 3/4. July soybeans up 1 1/2 at $8.38 1/2. August up 1 3/4 at $8.40 3/4. September up 1 3/4 at $8.41 1/4. November up 1 3/4 at $8.45 1/2. July wheat closed down 2 cents at $5 1/4. Soybean meal down 70 cents a ton at $2.8750. June live cattle up $2.87 at $97. August up 82 at $97.82. May feeder cattle up 92 cents at $124.72. August up 2 cents at $131.07. June lean hogs down 87 cents at $57.87, and July down 105 at $57.75. I'm Dwayne Murley.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Another volatile trading session with stocks closing in the green after data showed that April retail sales plunged, and news that the Trump administration will block shipments of semiconductors to China's Huawei Technologies. The Dow rising 60 points, the Nasdaq up 71, S&P 500 up 11. And lockdowns to curb the spread of the coronavirus causing record monthly drops in retail spending. The Commerce Department reporting that retail sales fell over 16% in April from a month earlier, marking the steepest month-over-month decline on record. Taking the biggest hit, clothing store sales down nearly 90% lower than a year earlier. And shares of Sorrento Therapeutics skyrocketing today, up 158% after the biopharmaceutical company provided an upbeat assessment of the results of a preclinical experiment of its COVID-19 virus antibody it's developing. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
New York's mayor says he wants to keep the lockdown for months, and some governors agree. As the economy collapses, Newsmax is asking Americans like you when the lockdown should end. You can vote in the Newsmax poll about the lockdowns and President Trump. Just text VIRUS to 39747. That's VIRUS to 39747 and vote instantly. Congress and President Trump need to know your opinion about the lockdowns. Text VIRUS to 39747 and watch Newsmax TV, America's new cable news channel everyone is talking about.
The General Store is excited to announce Donation Days. The General Store will be open to accept your donations this Friday from 9 till 5 and Saturday from 9 till 3. If you've been doing your spring cleaning, now is your chance to bring it all to the General Store. Household items, clothing, decorations, furniture, if it's gently used, the General Store wants it. And of course, your donations are tax deductible. Don't miss Donation Days this Friday and Saturday at the General Store, 12 North 25th, Fort Dodge.
Have you ever wondered how the brain works? What makes us tick? Join me, Greg Woods, every Wednesday morning for all the latest news on the brain, on aging, and the science behind it all. It's The Mind Boggles, every Wednesday morning at 8:30 on AM 1400 KVFD.
Today on This Old But Still Nice House.
Hey, I'm going to start on getting that paint off the windowsill.
Wouldn't do that. This house was built before 1978. That's probably lead-based paint.
I don't think there's enough here to make a difference. Can't I just do it?
Sure, we can start the lead professional certification program on the Iowa Department of Public Health's website. Or we could just go to the site and find someone from their list of certified professionals. Seriously, stop scraping.
Find out what happens on the next episode of This Old But Still Nice House.
The great American outdoors are right outside your back door. Get a great deal on a great tool when you save $20 on the tough and dependable Stihl MS-170 chainsaw. Shop online, pick up at any of over 9,000 local Stihl dealers. Find yours at STIHLdealers.com. Offer valid for a limited time at participating dealers while supplies last. See dealer for details and consult state local guidelines for availability of promotional products and pricing in your area.
Have you ever wanted to learn a new language like French, Spanish, or Russian, but thought it would be too difficult and time-consuming? Then go to Babbel.com and try it for free. Babbel works because it's built around real life. It teaches you everyday practical conversations that you will actually use. In 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. Babbel uses a modern conversation-based technique that makes language engaging, fun, and memorable. It starts by teaching you words and phrases. Then, sentences gradually get more complex. Soon, you're practicing short conversations about real-life topics. Babbel is created by language experts who use the spaced repetition method to help you learn quickly and remember what you learned. With Babbel, you can speak a new language. Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel free. Just go to babbel.com or download the Babbel app and start learning a new language today. That's babbel.com. BABBEL.com.
Michael Devine, Nevin Mulholland, and Randy Kuhlman talking sports at AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, again, Randy's gone today. By the way, Nevin, I'll be gone the next 2 Fridays. So
where are you going, Mike?
Well, I'm going to take some time off around Memorial Day. And I'm going to, then I get to go to have a sleep apnea test at the hospital.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. I've had them before. They suck bad. But I'm just not getting any relief. I've had allergies all my life. As a matter of fact, a dermatologist told me years ago, if anybody should move to Arizona, it's you, because you're allergic to everything in the state of Iowa. But this is home for me. But anyway, I'm trying to get... trying to be able to sleep at night. And, of course, the fact that I smoked Lucky Strike non-filters for 42 years is not in my favor. But, you just got to kind of work with what you got. You know, Nevin, no doctor I went to, and I went to a lot, no doctor I ever went to said, Mike, you need to gain more weight and smoke more cigarettes. I went to many doctors hoping one would say that. They never did, Nevin.
I got him.
I don't know.
Yeah, jeez.
You know, I'm basically a union guy. I'm a union sympathizer. From way back, every time the subject of illegal immigration comes up, I have to say that it's all about busting unions, and somebody always wants to scream racism. I always want to say, I got your racism right here. But I tell you, the Major League Baseball players, I think, are being disingenuous, to say the very least. They are the owners, by the way, the owners of Major League Baseball want to have a 50-50 revenue split with the players for whatever they can salvage out of the season. Now, that doesn't sound unreasonable to me. The union, and I realize the union exists for 2 reasons: to increase pay and benefits. I get it. I support it. I know. The union has insisted on an agreement signed in early March, really before all of this, that judges' salary on a per-game basis. Well, of course that's going to be a lot more. So I would wish that the Major League Baseball Players Union would acknowledge the world we live in now. And I realize unions sometimes have trouble doing that. But I really think the 50-50 split for this year only. As a matter of fact, Tom Ricketts, who owns the Cubs, said his team may not even play this year. But for this season only, I would think the players' union would be a little bit more flexible. Hopefully.
Well, but it's Mike. Look at these guys. The owners are big boys. They came to the players' union and says, "We got a problem here. We got to figure it out, and we need some concessions." So they sat down at the bargaining table, and they agreed. They said, our salaries will be prorated based upon the number of games played, right?
Okay.
I think that's the way it worked.
I think you're right.
Okay. And so this deal was cut. Now they come back, we don't like that deal. We don't think that's going to work. Now we want to go this 50-50 route. And they had already struck a deal, and now they're backing up on it. That's the deal. Now, I get it. That's what I'm going to circle back to what I told you earlier about public perception. Your perception of this whole issue is going to be much similar to a lot of the public's perception, that we got a bunch of rich guys that are playing baseball, making millions of dollars, and they're being greedy about the whole thing.
No, the owners are the worst greedheads on earth, and the players, I've always supported them and their unions. They have a very short career even if it's 15 years, which is a successful career, that's short. They still have the rest of their lives to live, and they need some assurance that they're getting the most out of their playing years. I know the owners don't care at all. I mean, they move their teams around the country without regard to what the city that sponsored them for so many years has to say or feels about it. No, I'm no fan of the owners. And you're absolutely right when you say that my position on this particular issue is motivated simply because I'm a fan and I want to see baseball.
Well, yeah, but my point is that the owners do stand to lose billions of dollars. In fact, a lot of these small market team owners, it could be critical. You know, they may not survive it, depending on if and when baseball starts. So I get that part of it, but for God's sakes, they're going to get some pushback from the players because the players sat down with them and they worked it out what they thought was a fair and reasonable deal, and now the owners want another bite at the apple. Now they're saying, that wasn't such a good idea.
Well, are you talking about the agreement they came to in early
March? In March.
Now, well, but is that fair now? Nobody knew in early March what this was going to look like. I mean, it's like Corona.
But it's all based upon nobody did, and they said, "Hey, the smart way to do this is if we don't, we'll pay their salaries based upon the number of games we play." That doesn't sound unreasonable to me, Mike. You know, if they don't play any games, you don't get paid. If you play half the season, you get half your salary. I didn't think that was unreasonable. And now they want them to do more than that. They want them to share in. They want them to play for them, but share in the risk associated with the season. And if they don't, I think what they did probably, they didn't anticipate, say, that we'd play baseball without stadiums full, without concessions, without parking. But for God's sakes, these guys, every one of these guys, including Ricketts, have been extremely successful businessmen. If anything, they're more informed than the players.
That's why players have agents, to do their thinking for them. Well,
Scott
they do.
Boros,
Scott Boros.
And he's just a little bulldog on this issue.
Is he
will have those owners just spitting nails.
Well, good.
No, he will. Because he came right out of the chute and said that's a non-starter. We will not. You know, he's talking from his perspective as an agent for a lot of big-time players, including your buddy Chris Bryant. But that will be an interesting issue because I do think the players may have to compromise on this a little bit and have to swallow a little pride to get this thing done.
Is Boros an attorney or not?
That's a good question. I shouldn't. I can't say with certainty that he is. I don't think he is, but I just don't recall.
Yeah, well, you don't have to be an attorney, but it helps, of course, if you're negotiating contracts. And there's a lot of successful agents that aren't. But it's if I was going to have somebody go in and negotiate a contract for me, it would be an attorney simply because they have the training. Anyway, you've never negotiated a sports contract, have you, or have you?
I'm trying to think. There was a couple things I looked at over the years, but nothing at the major league or pro level.
Right.
I don't believe so. Yeah.
Boy, those agents are well. Say an agent gets a contract for $20 million, which is pretty average anymore. Doesn't he get like 20% of it?
No, I don't think they get anywhere near that. You know, Mike, and I thought it was like, you know, maybe it's on a sliding scale, but maybe 1 to 10% or whatever.
Oh, is that all? I thought they did a lot better.
Yeah. Well, but that's a lot of dough when you're signing up. You know, you've got people that are signing for 5 or 6 years or 7 years for $7 or $8 million bucks.
Yeah.
And run the numbers on that. Yeah.
You know, we've talked about the ESPN series The Last Dance, which is still running the last couple of weeks, and it's I've seen some of the episodes 2-3 times, so I don't need to see him anymore. But every time a new episode comes out, I find out something different about Michael Jordan. What the focus this guy had and the competitiveness are out of this world. I don't know if I've ever heard someone speak as he has, intelligently and understandably, about his desire to win. Really. I mean, he will do...
Well, he was consumed.
He was.
By winning, and maybe to a fault.
Yeah.
He gave up a lot to win. I mean, you're seeing that this guy was no joy to be around at times.
Man, I guess.
Yeah, you listen to these guys afterwards as they break it down. I listened to Scotty Burrell this week, Will Perdue, Steve Kerr. It's really interesting to listen to their perspective on this. Scotty Burrell loves the guy. He knew what he was in for. Interestingly enough, and I did not know this, he came out of Connecticut, was coached by Jim Calhoun. He said, anything that Jordan laid on me was nothing compared to Calhoun. He said, I was totally prepared, for Michael Jordan. And I had no problem with him, and there was this scene, about how Burrell kind of ran around when he was younger and stuff, and that he may have been nervous about that, and he knew what the clip was, and it was going to be on this. But he said, no, it's just a good laugh. He said, my family, I gave him a heads up and said, Michael's just exaggerating. Right.
You get one thing about Michael Jordan through that whole thing. This guy's a jock. He is the ultimate jock. He's just got swagger and attitude, and he's
You know what? The coolest thing about Michael Jordan, for me, this is odd. I love the way Michael Jordan walks. Nobody walks cooler than Michael Jordan.
And it's natural.
That walk of his says, I am the man.
That's right. That's right. And all this time I thought Scottie Pippen was this kind of grumpy guy, who wasn't very likable. And he comes off very likable. And, I mean, he's competitive, as competitive as all of them are. You can't be in Major League Sports without being hyper-competitive. But actually the attributes that Jordan obviously has, I kind of attributed to Scottie Pippen when I was actually watching them play. Pippen, nobody went to the basket like Pippen from the sideline, as far as I'm concerned, and he just ripped toward the basket, and I used to just love that. But
he was really good, and I think we forget how good he was. But I also think that this whole Last Dance has really magnified, and a lot of this I had forgotten, to be quite frank with you, about how Pippen, waited until the season started to have his surgery because he was pissed about his contract, how he didn't want, the game against the Knicks where he refused to go back in because Kukoc was going to take the shot, and then he hit it. Pippen has had moments where he really comes off as being somewhat immature, pouty, baby.
Yeah, he is kind of that way. He is kind of that way.
But and honestly, Mike, I had forgotten about those, and maybe didn't even appreciate how significant those things were. A couple of instances where he really let his teammates down. But I do agree with you when I watch the show. He seems there's a part of me that really likes the guy, and appreciates his comments, his behavior now,
Mm-hmm. No, when he was playing with Jordan, he seemed to come off as kind of nasty or gnarly at times, and maybe he was, compared to Michael Jordan, who was always giving us that magic smile, Jordan was always aware of his public image, and he was, God, how much he made from endorsements, nobody will ever know, I don't think. But
Pippen had he been on another team, I think we would have thought of him as a much greater player than the way we think of him, because he was overshadowed by Jordan, and he did play his role, which is what I respect. he did. When he did play, he played the role necessary to win.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of players that wouldn't have. They would not have been comfortable, as talented as Pippen was, playing second fiddle to Jordan.
Yeah. There was I forget which episode it was, but Phil Jackson does come off as a guru every now and then. You know?
You just love the guy. You
know? Yeah.
Because you love how cerebral he was.
He really was.
And people, geez, I just love that about Phil Jackson. He wasn't so much an X's and O's coach as he was a manager of people. And that's what he really excelled at, and I think that's what pro coaches have to excel at, managing these egomaniacs.
Yeah. Well, he brought the team over to the bench in one episode, and he said, we're having trouble scoring, but Paxton's wide open. He's wide open, getting the ball, and the players are, Jordan and Pippen are, Paxton? What do you mean what do you mean let him take the shot? And Phil Jackson's just in his guru mode. Let him take the shot. So in the next few minutes, Paxton drops three pointers.
Huge shots, by the way. Wins the ball game.
Wins the ball game. And he's so open. I mean, everybody's clustered around Jordan and Horace Grant and some of the other players. And there's Paxton. He's over there all by himself. And so they get him the ball.
Paxton was the shooter, by the way.
He was. He just
you could rely on him to hit the shot. But you know what? You watch pro basketball sometimes. I can watch a game, and I can watch certain players, and you can appreciate dynamics. And there are certain players, the go-to guys, that don't give the ball up to the guys that might be open. I'm putting this in a very simplistic frame, but it really does happen. I mean, I watch games. Why don't they throw X the ball?
Well, you remember
wide open.
You of course remember Allen Iverson.
Sure,
Allen Iverson. Oh yeah, great player, but he was a ball hog. My God,
the guy was a warrior. I'm telling you.
I'm not saying he wasn't.
5'10".
Yeah, he was a tough guy.
Nobody drove the lane like that guy did, and that was back in the day. You paid a price every time you went to the rim. And this little guy would go flying in there, and he would get drilled. But I'll tell you a story about Allen Iverson, though. He did take it on his shoulders. Often he thought he had to do everything. But it's just like Jordan. You had to gain his confidence. And when Kyle Korver got drafted by New Jersey, then they sold him, to the 76ers for a copy machine. And so Korver played with Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson would always give Korver the ball in the clutch or get it to him when he was out there. And somebody says, you're pretty willing to pass Korver all people the ball. I said, what's the deal? He goes, because the guy can shoot. I throw it to him. I know he'll make the shot, he says. And he had nicknamed Korver the Sniper.
Yeah.
And he always called him the Sniper. And it goes, you've got to earn their confidence, some of these guys, like Iverson and Jordan.
Yeah. Well, Jordan commented on it a little bit later on in this episode, like he didn't know Paxton could shoot at all. And all of a sudden he woke up to the fact, hey, if I throw the ball over there, he'll score. Just a revelation, Iverson was a great player, but I think if you go back and look at some of the games that he was in, he's got the ball most of the time.
He would shoot, but yeah, I understand that. But honestly, Mike, most of these players, you would go right down like, you think Kobe passed the ball very often?
No.
And I mean, these guys, they felt they were the man. They were the ones going to have to take the shot, certainly when the game was on the line. And that was part of their charm and confidence.
Yeah. To get back to baseball just for a minute, I heard, we're running out of time here pretty fast, but I heard that Nolan Ryan was barely a 500 pitcher. How can that be? Is that true? Somebody look. It is true. You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he was over 500, I think, but not by his win-loss record was spectacular by any means, but his stuff was. And
7 no-hitters. 7.
Yeah, there you go. When he was on, he was a handful.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he was one of the great fastball pitchers I got to see in my life. And, yeah, he threw the ball hard. Not as hard, in my opinion, as Roger Clemens, who was a beast. But yeah, he did his job.
You know what? I'm thinking Ryan threw harder than Clemens or could throw faster, but that's a good question. I'm going to look that up after we get off the show.
All right, thanks a lot, Nevin.
All right, Mike. Have a good weekend,
Yeah.
buddy.
KVFD Fort Dodge.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Limu, when we're not telling people that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, I've actually been moonlighting as a DJ. Check it! Here's the good part! Liberty, 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 liberty. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
It's called Operation Warp Speed. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. That's the nickname the White House has given to the worldwide effort to have a vaccine for COVID-19 by the end of the year.
We're working together with many different countries. And again, we have no ego. We have no ego. Whoever gets it, we think it's great. We're going to work with them. They're going to work with us.
The scientists who are part of the coronavirus vaccine project have identified more than a dozen to focus on. The president says he would use the military to distribute the vaccine, focusing first on nursing homes and the elderly. A vote in the House expected later tonight on another $3 trillion coronavirus relief package. It contains another round of direct payments to Americans, $1 trillion in aid to local and tribal governments, help for frontline workers, and an extension of unemployment benefits. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
The HEROES Act has a strategic plan, something that has been lacking thus far. A strategic plan with a vision to end this plague. A strategic vision, a goal.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy blasting the bill.
Thousands are dead or sick, and millions more are out of work because of China. And Speaker Pelosi is so tone deaf that she just dismisses China as a diversion.
President Trump has said this bill is dead on arrival, but the White House has said it is willing to negotiate another stimulus package. Wall Street at the close, stocks closing modestly higher after a day of gains and losses. The Dow added 60, the Nasdaq plus 70, the S&P up 11 points. This as the Federal Reserve says parts of the U.S. financial system came under severe strain in March as the virus outbreak was shutting down much of the economy. But it says its quick action helped alleviate many of the stresses, but it cautioned further shocks to the financial system could occur depending on the course of the virus. America is listening to Fox News.
This is a last chance alert. It's happening. Publishers Clearinghouse is ready to award $5,000 a week for life in just days. Enter now at PCH.com and you could win $5,000 a week after week, for life. Don't miss this last chance to win $5,000 a week for life on June 30th. Enter at PCH.com before it's too late. That's PCH.com. Better hurry if you want the next big winner to be you. Enter now at PCH.com. Entries due 6/25. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited.
This is what Flo from Progressive sounds like in one of our many hilarious commercials.
And basic motorcycle policies start at just $75 a year. I know, right? Do you think I say I know right too often? I do. I know, right? I have to stop, don't I? I know.
And this is what that same commercial sounds like on your motorcycle. Yeah, even our commercials are better on a bike. Progressive keeps you on yours. Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Annual premium for basic liability policy not available in all states.
With your KVFD news update, I'm Rob Jones. A Hardin County man